Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's show of 3 hours endurance training. We will be there for 180 minutes and 150 minutes in the very same zone. So for that, I prepared the 1998 tour for you guys and for myself. Yeah. So let's get on with it. Sorry for the sound, it's mono, brought to you by Classic Cycling and Success Cycling, these videos. So
Hello to you
let's
all.
just
I'm Phil
enjoy
Piggott and welcome
Jan
to the
Ulrich all
85th
over
edition
again.
of the Tour de France,
One of
one
my
of the
favorite
world's
rider,
great
by
annual
the way.
sporting spectacles,
I
which
really like
was
Jan.
first held back in
Now let me
1903.
check the
While
sound
France
quality.
celebrated its final weekend of the Football World Cup on home ground, the race stayed with recent tradition of starting every other year in a foreign country, this time choosing Ireland for its first 3 days of racing. Overall, the race covers almost 4,000 kilometres during its 3 weeks on the road. Moving from Ireland to France after arriving at Cork, it then travels south to Pau, where the mountains begin with the Pyrenees. Then it's east to the Alps before the final time trial and the traditional finish on the Champs-Élysées on August the 2nd. Hot favourite after his convincing win in 1997 was the German Jan Ullrich, but he arrived in Dublin, Ireland amid speculation that he was unfit and overweight
So I
after a
gave it
winter
a
of
little bit of a
celebration.
boost.
In fact, quite the opposite. He looked ready and fit
Finally
for
I have
battle.
my microphone stand.
Also in
You
for his
don't
checkup was
see
our
it,
prologue
here
favourite
you
Chris
see it.
Boorman, who
Now,
Gary Immel
let's get
was
on with the
waiting for.
training, shall we?
The nearest thing the Irish have to a home rider in this year's tour looked at home
Workout
heading into his
ticket for
medical
London,
and probably
latest
felt it,
London
having
flat
spent a
music
fair
and
part of his
minimal
season
UI
so
tech.
far searching for the
You will
source of
see
his
in a
nagging
minute.
health problems.
Minimal
Sure,
UI.
doctors seemed as
Perfect.
anxious as anyone to coax a good performance out of him.
Good. Keep going. Good.
But despite the encouragement and what looked strangely like an attempt to give him a jump start, last year's prologue winner was guarded about his prospects for this year.
I would say I'm likely to be in the top 5. I might win. I think that's the way I'd put it. Sorry, folks. Hope you haven't put a bet on there, but that's the way it is at the moment, and I'll just give it my best shot.
Let's bring
I've
it a
been
little bit more
extremely
closer.
stupid before, and it might just work out this year.
If not you, who?
If not me, potentially Christophe Moreau of Festina if he's riding. I'm not sure whether he's down. Alano, obviously, but more likely to be Zula. I think the main chance will come from Zula. He's very, very good at this type of event.
And what about the course? Does it suit you?
I'll tell you in a few minutes. I'm just off to see it.
What he could see of it given Dublin's rush hour traffic. The good news for Chris, though, is at least the number 49 isn't running today.
Well, Gary, I can assure you that the roads are closed now for everybody in this race. The
Here we
best
go,
time has been
Christophe.
done by Christophe Moreau of the Festina team, 6 minutes 17 seconds. But let's go to the action and the arrival of Alex Zula here, because he was pushing Moreau the same time at the halfway, and Zula's lost a little bit of time, Paul, on the running. 6:19.56. He'll be disappointed. Well, Christophe Moreau certainly won't be, Paul. He's still number 1. This is Abraham Olano now, a man who's come to the Tour this year
those
with just a
helmets.
win in this race in mind.
Certainly has his preparation exactly the same as Miguel Indurain's was over the last few years of his career. He's based everything on this one race, and he's based everything on the preparation of the Banesto team, and he's off to a very quick start in a huge gear.
5.6 kilometres around the streets of Dublin, and it's nearly all over now for Bobby Julich. His time checks have been good, and Julich now wants to put an impression on this Tour. Second time round for him.
It's a long way to the finish from here, Phil, but he's going to
Sounds
push Christophe
fine.
Moreau very close on the line.
So let's go back.
So coming up O'Connell Street now for Bobby Julich. It could be the first big surprise. A 6:17.29. It's the best time. It's only fractions of a second better though than Christophe Moreau. Now back to Abraham Olano out on the course, and the time checks are good.
Well, Olano's riding a very good prologue. He is a good prologue time trialist, but the man everybody expects to do well is Britain's Chris Boorman, who's in the starting gate right now.
So Chris Boorman, the 4th rider from the end to start today. The pressure on him. He comes from just across the Irish Sea near Liverpool. So he's the nearest they'll get to a local rider in the Tour de France this year. The pressure is clearly on him.
A couple of days ago, I went to interview Boorman on the track in Manchester, Phil, and all he was doing was starts and 1 kilometres, 2 kilometres, 3 kilometres to get his speed up for this opening prologue time trial. For him, it's his major goal of this season.
Well, if the crowd can lift him, that's the answer. Boorman is underway while Abraham Olano is coming home, and it's going to be a great ride by Olano. He's thrown his hat into the ring with this one. He's going to beat Julich by a fraction of a second as well. Abraham Olano, 6:16, is number 1.
Nice.
Julich drops to number 2. Now, the yellow jersey of 1 year ago, and what a sensational win it was for Jan Ullrich. He's now on course.
Laurent Jalabert has been putting great performances in out on the course too. He was the fastest time at the midway checkpoint, and the new champion of France is coming up to the line now, Phil, and it could well be he's going to topple Abraham Olano, and Jalabert is not one of the great time trialists of the sport.
Well, he's going to find O'Connell Street is a long, long straight here. As he comes up towards the line, he's going to be very close. He's just gone past it. Well, Jalabert has gone into the same second slot as both Julik and Moreau. Now, Jan Ullrich on course as well, and riding like the wind. I don't see him looking too fat at all.
Well, Ullrich's come to the Tour de France in right condition. Perfect, I think. You know, he was third in the prologue of the Tour of Switzerland just 14 days ago, and now he's out on the course. But Boorman, Phil, was fastest at the halfway checkpoint.
And he swings into O'Connell Street. He will see the line from there, but as I said, it's a long, long way to go now. Boorman accelerating. He had a good split. He was fractionally quicker than Abraham Olano at the split out on the course. The seconds are indicating he could be on a winning ride here. Chris Boorman racing for the line. He's won the prologue twice before, and now he's won it 3 times. 6:12.36, and there's still to finish the yellow jersey.
Let's focus.
But his time is down, Paul.
We are here for 3 hours.
Chris Boorman at the halfway stage, but he has picked up a little bit over the closing kilometres, and this man has come to the Tour de France in great condition. That's the time to beat of Chris Boorman, 6:12. He's not going to do that, but it's a pretty good time, Phil. As he comes up to the line, it's going to be very close indeed. It's be third place for Ullrich, 6:17, so he really has come to the Tour de France in good condition.
Well, they don't come much tighter than that between 3rd and 6th, but Chris Boorman wins the prologue time trial for a 3rd time. He equals Eddie Merckx and Thierry Marie.
Right, 0 to them.
And it's a fantastic surprise. I really didn't expect to win today, but it was some ways it helped because it took the pressure off. I just decided to give it my best shot and see what happened.
What percentage of your best were you out there?
Well, I'd say it looked like it came right on the day, but even this morning I didn't feel so good, and normally I can predict myself quite well. The training hasn't been going great, but I just gave it everything, and the crowd really helped today. The noise was incredible.
Almost like a home fixture out there.
Yeah, absolutely, and I've never dedicated a win before, but this one is for my wife, without whom I wouldn't be here.
A great start for Chris Boorman. He did what he set out to do. He won the prologue time trial, the 3rd time he's done that. Now he's got to defend the yellow jersey over the road races stages here in Ireland. And the Dublin circuit race, 180 kilometres, will take the riders into the mountains of Wicklow. Still, Paul, the weather is not great, but at least it's not raining.
Well, at least it's not raining, and
It's
Boorman's
not
going to
great,
get
at
a
least
lot
it's
of
not raining.
challenges here from
Yeah.
riders like Eric
That's
Zabel and
something
Mario
great.
Cipollini, who in the overall standings are not too far behind him, but he looks pretty confident in the yellow jersey.
Well, Ireland have turned out in their thousands here. This is the sprint at Bray. A little group here taking it out. Jan Zerada taking it ahead of Eric Zabel and Fred Moncassin. There's the result.
Man, that has
Those
long
time
ago.
bonuses at this stage of the Tour de France are always so crucial. Onto the climb now. This is the climb of Wicklow
That's a
Gap,
solo.
and a little breakaway still clear, headed by Zanini. Jens Voigt sat at the back here.
Well,
Jens
Jens Voigt
Voigt.
is sitting here because he's
Oh,
the
this is
teammate
team
of
in
Chris
Zwift,
Boorman,
yeah?
who's the overall leader. He's not
I
going to
got the
contribute
platforms.
anything at all to the success of this breakaway, and he'll sit at the back and hope they can stay clear, because if they do, he'll be the man who'll be taking the yellow jersey this afternoon. But in the main field behind, it's Mario Cipollini's Seiko team who are on the front, trying to pull it all back together.
Well, pull it back they are. This breakaway at one stage was over 3 minutes up. It's now down to inside 2 minutes. In fact, it's now down to 1:25, and the tempo being set, you see, right down the slopes here of the mountain. It's an area which Stephen Roach spent many a
Let me know
mile
if my
training
mic is
because he
not
doesn't
okay.
live too far away from here.
Mirko Kripaldi
think
from
it's okay right
Polte
now.
on the front there, and you can see the speed of the main field behind Phil. They want to pull it all back together because the sprinters want to have their day. Men like Zabel, Tom Steels and Cipollini feel that these opening days of the Tour are the most important for them.
Richard Virenque and his Festina team riding under something of a shadow at the moment with the arrest of their masseur, Willy Voigt, and they've found dope in his car over in Belgium. We're into the park, and there's the crash. It's just happened as they've come into the park. And down there, Paul, is Mario Cipollini. Looks like the fall was caused by a teammate.
Well, that was Mori who went down in front of Cipollini. I couldn't see any reason at all for that crash. As they come to the line, though, they're all together, and Cipollini's a long way behind.
And Steels is on the front, and Tom Steels has got his stage win. Tom Steels, who was disqualified last year when he slung his bottle at Fred Moncassin, has come back the very first road race stage. He's taken it out in the sprint. So Steels, the champion of Belgium, a title he defended successfully just a few days ago, and this is how he did it. The new champion of Germany, Eric Zabel, looked to be getting his first stage win of the Tour. but he'd gone far too early and Steels had timed
Oh,
it to
there is
perfection.
Taba.
The Australian
I liked him.
Rabobank rider Robbie McEwen
I liked
coming
him
a little
back in
bit
the day.
late but going clear for third place, and the rest were distanced by 3 of the fastest finishers in the world. So Steels times it right, Zabel mistimes it here, he went too soon for the line. It's a difficult finish in Phoenix Park, a very straight finish, and the best man to judge it gets the win, and today it was Tom Steels. Overall, the sprinters had moved closer because of small time bonuses throughout the day, but Chris Boardman kept the yellow jersey, just.
Halfway to the warm-up.
And this is the starting town of Enniscorthy with a
Good
huge
news,
crowd
this is
lining
last
the route.
week.
In fact, a guard of honour provided by more than
That's
2,000
it.
of the Wexford
Managing
pikemen.
it.
There's
My
no
resting
doubt
cards it.
the Tour de
Boardman
France has
from
been a great
51,
success here
52.
in Ireland. Is that right?
240, 345.
Everybody is happy. This is the
So
biggest
good going.
crowd so far, and the
The rest
crowds
is
have
so
been
far.
big, Paul. But now they're heading
That's
down
what
the
it's supposed
southeast
to do,
corner
rest
of
my body.
Ireland. This really is the hotbed of cycle racing in the region.
It certainly is. Mario Cipollini stinging after that crash yesterday. 179th, 3 minutes 53 seconds behind. But for him, he gets the chance today to go through Sean Kelly's hometown.
So next on the list is Carrick-on-Shore, the hometown of Sean Kelly. It is a beautiful little hamlet, and believe me, they've been looking forward to today. The town of Carrick is ready.
Feel free to chat
You know, Phil, in the absence
on
of a giant
Facebook,
meteorite,
as a comment
certainly there was none mentioned
on
this
the
morning's
video,
short-range forecast.
YouTube
the
or
Tour is the
Twitch.
biggest thing ever likely to hit Carrick-on-Shore.
Whatever platform makes you
For a
happy.
while, though, it looked like being a
Feel
near
free to
miss.
chat.
Originally, the organisers had the race route bypassing the centre of town because the west gate was deemed too narrow for the peloton. Eventually, an ancient stone which had survived the visit of Cromwell gave way to the French, and the race was free to pass through Sean Kelly Square. And incidentally, the pub belonged to the local councillor who'd led all the lobbying.
Now, the campaign had nothing to do with the fact that it meant the race was coming past your bar.
Possibly a little bit. Very interesting.
It's a dream come true for Carrick and myself in particular. I've been going to the Tour de France since 1980, following Sean since he turned professional. And to think that it passed in my own front door is just unreal.
5,583 is the population of Carrick, and 5,582 of them were in place from early this morning, waiting for the one responsible for bringing them the race.
Guide is underway.
God moves in luxurious ways these days, and the first sign that the long wait might be over was the Kelly helicopter coming in low over the houses. Then came news that he'd been spotted on the ground.
4 more minutes, then we are off to the main set. 150 minutes in zone 2. That's one point why I'm watching old cycling YouTube videos. Old, like 2 kids old, but still.
The people turned out and here in Carrick-on-Shore, you know, they've come out in such fast numbers, it's just unbelievable. A day never to forget.
It wouldn't be coming through here only for Sean Kelly's and for Sean Kelly's history with the Tour de France. And Sean Kelly take all the credit for that. Leave out government, anything at all. It would not be coming through Carrick-on-Shore. And from 7 to 77 they've turned out.
A town in celebration indeed, and one of my favourite towns in Ireland, I have to say, but the race is flat out now, Paul. They're chasing the time bonus. There's a crash there, and that looked to me like the yellow jersey has gone down. We're approaching the sprint at Youghal, and I think that's Boardman on the road.
In fact, Race Radio, Phil, confirming it is Boardman. He's down there on the left-hand side somewhere. You can just see the yellow jersey. He's down, and he's not moving at all.
Well, this is very, very sad indeed. What an exit from Ireland. This is turning out to be. Chris Boardman looks now as though he's out of the Tour here. He had a very, very nasty fall indeed. I think he may well have hit that wall. Certainly he's stunned. Let's have a look if we can see what happened. There's about 10 or 12 men down here. You suddenly see Boardman come out of the line. That looks to me like a rider who's touched the back wheel. And this is another man who's so unlucky, Johan Brunel.
Brunel is always getting involved in crashes, but Boardman is still on the ground. The race doctor, Gerard Porte, is there trying to see what the problem is, but Boardman is not moving.
Well, this is the sprint just down the road at Youghal, and if Zabel gets this, and it looks like he's going to, he's being attacked by Guidi, but Zabel gets the sprint. He is in any case now the new maillot jaune of the Tour de France, and he's done it at a time when Chris Boardman is being taken out of the race by ambulance.
Still chaos here, and
Cover
Boorman
up
still
my
lying on the ground. The doctor in
fan
there.
a
He's
little
actually
bit.
trying to put
Just
something
a
around
second.
Boorman's neck, so there may well be a slight injury to the neck there. But Boorman, for him, Phil, a difficult day at the Tour de France is over.
Well, it certainly is unlucky 13 for Chris, because it is he is the 13th rider to
Oh
leave
boy,
the Tour de
they have
France
to
wearing a
transfer the
maillot
yellow
jaune.
jersey. I was
So he'll
17
be
back
in
then.
Cork
I was more
Hospital tonight, and
focused
let's
on
hope he is okay. This is again another
my
crash here.
girlfriend
We've
than I
gone
did
further down the road now. We're just outside of the
on
finish at
foot
Cork.
cars.
Another touch of wheels,
See you,
and
Roland.
some of the big stars are down here. There's Neil Stevens, a stage winner last year, but they're all up and riding. No reports of injury. We're on the approach to the finish.
A very tricky finish too now. They're all trying to set it up. The riders at the front now are from Gann.
I
They're
guess it's
trying to set it up for
BM.
Moncas, this is Magnus Backstedt.
Well, Backstedt leading out. He hopes Fred Moncas has got a good wheel here.
This
is another difficult sprint to judge at the finish of Cork, and Backstedt is giving it his best shot here, the big Swede. Coming on to good form, but I'm not so sure whether he can hold it off now. We've also got Zanini here having a little dig. But where is Zabel? Not evident at the moment. Tom Steele is trying to burst through. Jan Zerada is also coming fast. Jan Zerada of the Czech team, and it looks as though it's going to be a tight battle. This one.
They are
McEwen is
moving
in
across
there.
the street.
Robin McEwen is lying in. And we've got Cipollini trying in the red, but Cipollini is not going to get it anything like. Jan Zerada takes it on the line, and so the Czech champion, a new Czech champion at that, gets the victory for Mappe. 2 out of 2 for them. Yellow jersey, though, has changed hands. Eric Zabel has it now. He gets it by 7 seconds ahead of Steele.
In the yellow jersey.
Is in third place. Alano, Jalabert and Julik still in there by virtue of their great prologue time trials. All having a well-earned rest here. Marco Pantani there as well. They've got the luxury of flying across now to the French coast in Brittany, while the rest of the entourage they're on the boats for the overnight crossing now to Roscoff. And the Irish, Paul, are giving them a royal send-off.
Here we go.
They certainly are. Red, white and blue, taking the Tour de France back to the mainland for the first time this year anyway.
And for stage 3, 169 kilometres, we leave Roscoff, heading down to Lorient, a real hotbed of French cycling. And the yellow jersey now on the shoulders of the German Eric Zabel, and he's managed to do that without even winning a stage yet. The Mappe boys have won both road race stages so far. The race now without Chris Boorman, overnight news is Chris is hurt, but not too badly. He has a broken wrist, in fact, and head injuries. Be okay.
Better efficiency energy system, so I can do the same work
because this terrain around Brittany and
the better efficiency can do
very difficult and would promote attacks.
The
couple of small
I
hills,
can put out the same energy for more work.
9 riders getting away at
That's the target for these long ones.
today as we head for Lorient, only the 8th time in Tour history. We'll have finished there. This is Pascal Chanteur.
Only 149 minutes left.
Breakaway.
They'll be looking to try and split it up. There's Stuart O'Grady, a former world champion on the track, riding a very good Tour de France here. And the man a lot of Denmark think will perform well in this year's Tour de France, wearing 61, Bo Hamburger.
Well, Hamburger has only got to worry really about the whereabouts at the finish of O'Grady, because there will be a change of yellow jersey and one of them will get it today. Number 75 here is Vicente Garcia Costa of the Benesto team. And the blonde hair here being worn by Pascal Hervé, who's looking for the King of the Mountains lead today.
All the riders from Festina decided to change their hair colour when they went to the French Championships just a week ago. And all the French riders this year in the Tour de France sporting that silvery grey colour.
I have to say that Hervé often looks like Richard Virenque. Now they've all got the same colour hair. Commentator's nightmare. But here's Hervé now, and still being marked by Pascal Chanteur, who's going to put a lot of work into this breakaway. They were up to 7 minutes at around 102 kilometres where the feeding station was, but it's come down now to just inside 3.
The important thing about this breakaway is the battle that's going to develop between O'Grady and George Hincapie, because these two riders, with a victory this afternoon, would be the rider to put the yellow jersey on their shoulders. We haven't seen much of George Hincapie, but he's obviously thinking about the sprint at the finish, because I think George is the fastest rider in this group.
Well, it's nice to get a breakaway.
I saw him yesterday riding in Zwift,
over the 2 days of road racing in Ireland. But this breakaway is moving 48 kilometres an hour. That's 30 miles an hour at the moment, timed on Hamburger's computer. And a nice steady tempo. There's an awful long way to go, but there's still plenty of flat roads before this race gets down to the mountains in Pau. Stuart O'Grady has had a great season. He comes here having won his first ever stage race, the Prou Tour in Britain. And now, just 11 kilometres from the finish, he is starting to hunt for that yellow jersey.
George Hincapie too having a great season, looking resplendent in the champion of the United States jersey there. He really did want to come back to Europe and wear that jersey and show it off to the Europeans, because it is a great jersey. And Hincapie looking for a victory this afternoon for the US Postal Service, who really have come to this Tour de France with ambitions this year.
We're talking a champions call, no fewer than 8 new national champions this year in the field, and indeed includes Bogart and Steels, who both defended their titles successfully just before the tour began, and they're all riding here. Hervé tonight should be in the polka dot jersey. He won the climb of the Côte de Châteauneuf-de-Faou. He also won the climb of the Côte de Roque-Trevez. So he's looking for polka dot tonight for Festina, but they are still riding under the cloud of the arrest of their team masseur, Willy Voigt, on the Franco-Belgian border, where reportedly his car contained files of EPO. And that is going to take some explaining. Anyway, looking down at the breakaway here, the 9 riders who have worked very well together. Jens Heppner's here for the telecom team. Not exactly putting his weight behind the brake, of course, because of Zaba being in yellow. Looking
well, it's important
exactly
for Heppner to make sure that he catches out any of the splits as we come towards the finish. The man on the front in green is Cabello, the winner of the stage of the Tour de France, when in fact it went to England in 1994, and he's a very good sprinter himself when it comes down to the fast finishes. But these riders now looking at the kilometres ticking away, and Bo Hamburger slipping to the back. These riders have got a big advantage because they have 2 men in this group. They will be able to cover any of the attacks over the last few kilometres.
Beautiful day now, huge crowds. Look at them on the roundabout here as we head into this northwest corner of France, an area which is made for cycling and has produced many stars. We're not too far away now from the home of Bernard Hinault, the great Breton, and Jean Rubik, who won the Tour de France in the late 40s. But this breakaway now, one of them is going to get yellow. The odds are, Paul, it will either be Hamburger or O'Grady, but it'll go down to the bonuses at the finish.
It certainly will. It's going to be a very tricky situation. If they can keep it together, it will go to O'Grady or it will go to George Hincapie. But you can see these 2 riders from Casino riding very well together. Casino, the most successful team in Europe this year, with over 40 wins to their credit, and they're still looking to win more.
Sitting at the back there, Xavier Jean, newcomer to the Tour and a member of the La Française des Jeux team. 5 kilometres to go now. Well, we expected somebody to try and get clear here, because they're not all sprinters. In fact, very few of them are. Hincapie, well, as you say, Paul, he could snatch yellow with the right finish here, and he's been riding so strongly. He's become a different man these last few days since he won the US Championship.
He certainly has. A great victory by him. I think really served him on a plate by Lance Armstrong, who really is now on his way back to the top level of the sport.
Sunday,
Hincapie becoming very nervous
the same 3 hours of microbursts, so
you can see the rivalry between these 2
men.
Men.
Today, that's for sure.
Hincapie goes to the front. He's very quickly followed by Stuart O'Grady in the white Gann jersey. Those 2 men realise they need to get victory this afternoon to get the yellow jersey. Otherwise, it'll go to the Dane Bo Hamburger.
It does the same. So
well, Hincapie came out this morning 28, just 20 seconds off yellow, picked up 4 seconds in time bonuses, so he's getting closer. And now we've got the riders here into the town of Lorient, this beautiful fishing port, and they're getting a little bit twitchy. But Chatre, and somebody's gone. This is an attack by Vicente Garcia. Well, he had to go, I think. He's not renowned as a sprinter, but he's put in a fine turn of speed here.
An excellent move there, just at the right time. It looks as if O'Grady is the man to respond afterwards. He's not going to get so close to the finish and let a break get ahead of him. And another man too coming across there. Garcia trying to go clear. This was his chance to get victory. There's O'Grady in 2nd place. He's nailed him back. He's come back there.
Yeah, it was like
and there's Heppner in the pink jersey of Telecom. So he too now becoming very vigilant.
So Heppner up into 3rd place, a little split in the breakaway, but the fact that Garcia has slowed down, they're all going to regroup here, I think.
Hervé's going now down the left-hand side. A good move by him. A very smart
I'll be
tactician,
here today
Hervé. Even though there
for
is
the
a
2
cloud
parts
over
of
the
this.
Festina squad at the moment, they
should
certainly are racing aggressively. Hervé may well have caught them off guard here, just like Neil Stevens did in last year's Tour de France, and the effort behind coming from the man from Telecom, Jens Heppner.
Well, very briefly a leader and a stage winner in the Tour of Italy, not this year, last year. And now trying to get what will not be a yellow jersey, but certainly will be a stage win, and the polka dot is coming his way anyway. But again, the riders chased down. Now Hepner Paul has sat at the
How's my
back of this
microphone is
breakaway,
doing?
which has been away now, don't forget, for the best part of 120 kilometres.
Clean
And he should be the freshest of the
finally
lot.
have a
It
microphone
should be, but
stand
another
fixed
move has
to the
gone there. This is the rider
table
from the
and brought it
Française
closer.
Xavier Hon, and in fact there, and again,
So the
Hepner is
tripod
going
is
behind
free.
him. Hervé has sat
use
up now,
tripod
but this
for
man,
the webcam
young man from France,
sooner
the
or
youngest
later.
rider on the Française des Jeux team, and made an excellent move, and Hepner straight with him, looking very fresh.
He looks extremely fresh the way he's marked in there. He's pedalled up as easy as you like. He's not going to help John until he's sure he's going to get caught. He's come through now, but he's moved over, and they're doing bit and bit. But I tell you what, this little young man here, he's so anxious to get on with it, and Hepner won't discourage him because he'll let him use all the energy he's got, constantly looking exactly who might be coming across the gap. Hepner rode his first tour, by the way, back in 1992. Something of a revelation then. He finished 10th overall. Inside 1,000 metres to go, and Hepner is waiting.
He's waiting. He'll be thinking about the sprint, because last year he was in that sprint with Bart Voskamp where he was disqualified when both riders touched each other, and Xavier Hon has decided to open it up. Hepner in second position, it's ideal, but the group behind only fractions of a second off the mark.
Well, they're trying to get across here. It's a difficult moment. It looks as though Hamburger, Hincapie and in fact O'Grady are going to get the same time in that chase group, which I think will mean that Hamburger could be the man to profit most today. He's picked up bonuses along the route.
Oh, it's not funny.
For the stage win now,
Let's
well,
quote
Hepner's been
Hamburger.
forced into the lead, so Xavier Jean may just well
Let's
pick
do it.
this one up here. But he's coming at him, but I don't think he's got anything left in those legs. There's tremendous speed in the former East German here, and Jens Hepner's going to salvage a stage victory, I think, but he's still a little way to go. He's still holding back. Hincapie coming on the far left of the picture now, trying to get across the gap, but it's not going to happen. As Jens Hepner gets the stage win, his first ever in a Tour de France, and in third place will go Hincapie. The main field are coming in here, and Benesto are going to lead it at home, I think. It looks as though it was Guidi may well have brought them back in. But it was indeed a surprise stage win for Telecom, and the first ever for Jens Hepner here in Lorient. He gets the victory ahead of Xavier Jean. George Hincapie third. Hincapie looking good now.
Yeah, I feel strong. I just need to recover after today. I mean, we were out there all day, going 100%, and better get a good night's sleep tonight.
Do you feel as though you've got a stage win in you?
I think so. The team's riding really well, you know, and I feel strong. Just gotta keep taking my chances. These big field sprints early in the week are pretty tough, you know, because everybody's so fresh. So I feel my chances are better in breakaways like this.
Stuart O'Grady up to third, but how's the morale after the loss of Boardman?
Oh, I mean, you know, it's obviously extremely disappointing to lose Chris, especially through a crash and especially when you got the yellow jersey. But you know, the positive thing is that he didn't break anything. You know, he's not seriously injured, and that he'll be back. And so the team has got to go on, and the tour goes on. So now we've just got to make the best of what we can.
Still an opportunity this week to get Gam back in yellow, though.
Yeah, well, tomorrow I'm only a couple of seconds behind now, so you know, I'll really be playing for the bonus sprints and see how we go.
And for the moment, this is where he sits in third place, 3 seconds behind Bo Hamburger, the new leader, and George Hincapie for the US Postal right there in second place. We're now on the stage of 4 Plouay-Cholet, Paul, 250 kilometres. It's the longest stage so far.
It'll be a very long stage, but those intermediary sprints are going to be very important, especially for George Hincapie, Jens Hepner and Stuart O'Grady, because the first one, O'Grady was fastest over the line, this time beating Eric Zabel, so that gives him the yellow jersey, but he's still got 2 more sprints out on the course.
So he's converted his 3 seconds lost to 3 seconds gain here. He wears the rainbow sleeves there of an ex-world champion. And now look at this at the next sprint. O'Grady led out brilliantly by Fred Moncassin, and now he has gone well clear in the lead. Jan Zurada popping in there for a third place.
On the approach to the finish now, you can see the team starting to organise themselves. There's the Psycho team for Mario Cipollini trying to get him up there. TVM there in the yellow jerseys on the left-hand side for Blylavens. And the man on the front, he's from Polti. They're trying to get it up for Fabrizio Guidi.
So there are some great sprinters, if not all of them, in this year's Tour de France. And this isn't going to be an easy sprint either as they come down to the finish at Cholet. And there's been a crash on the corner as I speak, Paul. A touch of wheels again.
George Hincapie's in there right in the middle, so his chances of going for a bonus at the end of this stage are gone. One or two riders going down there. I didn't see why it happened, but now the big lead out coming from TVM at the front, and right up there in position there is Mario Cipollini.
Well, Cipollini in the slipstream, and looks as though he's dropped away here as we speak. Now inside 800 metres to go. Now TVM are feeling very confident. This is going to be a very difficult sprint here, but the TVM boys appear to have read it just right. No sign of Eric Zabel, no sign of Mario Cipollini. In fact, they're saying Cipollini has fallen. It was away from our cameras. But now there's just two riders left at the front here now. TVM, and it's also a rider from Seiko now who's trying to get in on the act. He's realised that Cipollini is not there.
Baldata taking over now, Phil, for Minali. Minali's up there into second place, and Blyleven's coming by on the outside. But there, the two, Tom Steels.
Well, Max Chandri falling away from the hotline now as Minali tries to come up. Jan Zarada is here too, but Blyleven is going to try and squeeze through the middle of them here. This could be his traditional win. He gets it on the line. Blyleven, Minali, Moncasam are all in that sprint, but it looked to me as though Blyleven's took it. Let's have a look again. Minali on the left of the picture here. As now, Jerome Blyleven, he always seems to get one stage win every year. He rode his first tour in '95, he won a stage. Now he's squeezing his way through an impossible gap. He gets it on the line, and Fred Moncassin there looks as though he'll have to do with fourth place. But Blyleven's pulled off a good one there. Having ridden his first tour in '95, he won in Dunkirk. Then next year he won in Besançon, in '97 in Marennes. That was after a disqualification. Now he wins in Cholet in 1998. But the yellow jersey, that goes to Stuart O'Grady now. He becomes only the second Australian behind Phil Anderson to pull on the maillot jaune. And that's a great result for him. There's the overall. He's 11 seconds now ahead of Hamburger, and I wonder how he feels right now.
On top of the world at the moment. I mean, since I started cycling, it was a dream of mine. One, to represent my country in the Olympic Games, and two, to get a yellow jersey in the Tour de France, and it's happening.
Well, yesterday it was a very difficult situation yesterday out on the road, because you and George Hincapie could have taken the yellow jersey if you'd both finished together going over the line.
Yeah, well, I had to finish in the first three to get the yellow jersey, and I knew that opportunities didn't arrive like that very often, and I was so disappointed last night to be so close but so far away, and I really didn't think that it was going to come together for the bonus sprints today. And when we got a sniff of the opportunity, the team took it on full steam ahead, and it worked like a charm.
It must have been very difficult for you out on the road too, because you know George Hincapie, he's a very good sprinter as well, and then you knew it was going to be head-to-head all the way.
Yeah, it's just, I know George is very fast. We did the same thing a couple of weeks ago on the Pro Tour in England, and I got on top of him there, so I think I had a little bit of a psychological boost over him, and also with big Magnus Backstead and Fred Moncassin leading me out. How can you lose?
Now, were you worried because you'd taken the yellow jersey virtually out on the road, and then that breakaway went clear, and they had almost 3.5 minutes at one stage?
Yeah, well, that was the plan. We just, Big Eros was up there controlling everything, and he was always in communication with Roger Leger back in the car, and we decided to give them a few minutes and then just kind of leave him out there, dangle out there, and then with 30k to go, we knew the big teams were going to come up for the sprint and really put the power on, and it worked well. Just besides the last bit, getting caught up in the crash at the end, that wasn't quite in the plan, and luckily I had enough seconds.
And how did it feel when you actually went out there on the podium and they put the yellow jersey on your shoulders for the first time?
Oh, incredible. I want to do it again.
I bet you do, Stewie. Well, there's the situation overall. 11 seconds, Hamburger and Hincapie locked together there. Jens Heppner still in fourth, and Pascal Hervé, the king of the mountains, he's lying in sixth place. Some of the favourites for you: Olano 17th, Ulrich 22nd at 1:22, Zuller 23rd, Pantani way out at the moment, 143rd after his very poor prologue time trial. Perhaps he is looking for just stage wins. But Paul, the news of the scandal continues.
Well, everybody's expecting the team manager, Bruno Roussel here, who's being pursued by some journalists, to be taken away by the police for questioning, because in fact Willy Voet has accused the team management of being involved in a systematic doping plan, and he says the police haven't come to talk to him yet, but as soon as they do, they'll explain everything to them.
So Bruno Roussel, who's actually often been seen as one of the nice men in the world of cycle racing, now the centre of what is clearly a scandal affecting the Festina team. We'll keep up to date with that as we go on to stage number 5 now, Cholet-Chateauroux, 228.5 kilometres, and there he is, Paul. He looks pretty good for an Aussie, doesn't he?
He certainly does, looking very comfortable, but you can see the sequel there of a crash on the left-hand side there. He went down in a little corner there, and this is how it happened. The rain was coming down in the first part of the stage. They went round and touched a couple of wheels, and Stuart O'Grady was down on the ground, but very shortly up again and riding. But for him, a difficult first day in the yellow jersey.
And he's now had to fall back to the team car and have his knee looked at here. A little bit of a hole in his kneecap, in fact. As the race continues, he was lucky in that fall because Wilfred Peters won the 6 seconds bonus and his teammate Moncassin got the 4 seconds. So it hasn't affected his race lead at the moment, as we're now running down towards the end of the stage.
On the front there, Laurent Brochard trying to lead out the sprint. Philippe Gaumont from Cofidis in second position there, looking very good. He's been excellent in all the early sprints now, but it's the turn of Casino to wind it up, and Mario Cipollini's boys are on the left-hand side also trying to give Mario Cipollini his first win.
Well, he's certainly had his ups and downs in this tour, Mario. We've waited a long time to see him even challenge for the victory so far. He's fallen on 2 stage finishes, but now he's poised nicely, just centre-left of our picture. And there was a nasty switch in the middle there. Looked as though it was caused by Jan Zverada, but he certainly kicked George Hincapie out of the way as they now continue for the line. With Zabel again has hit the front, and Cipollini challenges him. Eric Zabel, Cipollini clear of them all now and gets the win. It had to come sooner or later, and when it comes, he makes it look so easy. And in fact, judging by the result here, they have disqualified from the result Jan Zverada. He's been relegated. The yellow jersey staying on the shoulders of Stuart O'Grady, and that will keep him very, very sweet because we're heading down towards the time trial now. He leads by 7 seconds from Hincapie. Got switched out of it there in that sprint. Hamburger stays the same at 11 seconds as we now go on to stage number 6, La Chatre-Brive-La-Gaillarde. Happy days are here again. I've always wanted to be a chef, and here I am in the village of La Chatre this morning, waiting for the start of the stage of the Tour de France, getting the pasta ready for everybody to enjoy. But you know, a year ago, a young Frenchman enjoyed his day here, Cédric Vasseur. He won the stage alone. He transformed literally overnight from a domestique to a French superstar. When he went back home to northern France, they were ready for him with a ticker-tape welcome. He was given the full treatment. Well, in this tour, Cédric Vasseur lies 65th, almost 2 minutes behind the race leader, Stuart O'Grady. Should it come down today to a sprint, well, Vasseur won't be there, but Mario Cipollini should be. Danger is his business. And yesterday, Cipollini won his first stage of this year's tour. Behind him, another pilot, which left World Track champion Silvio Martinello, Jerome Bly-Levens and Jan Kirsipou lying in the road. The green jersey leader, Jan Zverada, was blamed for that crash and was relegated from 12th to 180th. Well, yesterday the French call that finish a sprint imperial. Mario Cipollini really is the best. How does he do it? Here's Paul Sherwin to explain.
The first requirement is a good set of thighs. 28 circumference is not bad for a start. Second is a big pair of lungs. In Mario Cipollini's case, nearly an 8-litre capacity. Third and most important, nerves of steel, which allow you never to panic, even when you get caught up in a situation like Super Mario did yesterday. Boxed in between Eric Zabel and Fabrizio Guidi, within sight of the line. The sprint of the 90 sprints with power, and Mario Cipollini's machine has a massive gear. A 53-tooth chainring at the front, combined with an 11-tooth sprocket at the rear, makes a very big gear. Mario Cipollini's physical attributes allow him to use that gear to accelerate from 50 kilometers an hour to 65 in the last 100 meters, leaving all his rivals trailing in his wake.
And the rider's coming to the start now, stage 6, without Silvio Martinello, who actually fractured his pelvis in that crash, which was caused by Jan Zverada. Well, Paul, it's a long way, 204 kilometres, up to 2,000 feet today, so we can say it's the high spot of the tour so far.
And a difficult day's racing in store. Although it is cloudy, the temperature climbing to 75 degrees Celsius in the latter part of the afternoon, and the winds coming from the northeast will make it very tricky on the run-in.
Even so, no major climbs, 3/4 categories and 1/3. Mario Cipollini talking to the chief commissaire, Martin Brunn. And Mario has one stage win under the belt now, so he's won 6 stages in the Tour de France, while Stuart O'Grady hasn't won any, but he's got the yellow jersey for the 3rd day.
For the sprint point of the day, it looks as if Jan Zverada is the man going out there to try and get the points, because he too is going to challenge Eric Zabel, who gets 2nd place over the line, and O'Grady still looking for a few seconds to keep the yellow jersey on his shoulders in 3rd.
Well, O'Grady's always said he'll lose the race lead tomorrow in the time trial because he won't match the big hitters there, but he's going to hang on to it as long as possible and get the privilege of the last start tomorrow. Well, Jan
I want
Ulrich,
the jersey like
122
this.
down,
But
finally
I
poised
can't
and
find
looking
anywhere.
like a real man who could defend his title this year. Same too for Abraham Olano. He could get it for the first time, but now today it won't be, because this is a breakaway of 3 riders. Max Chiandri of Britain sitting at the back. We've also got Cedric Vasseur. He's now taking the pace up, and Jose Rodriguez of the Kelme team. None within a minute and a half of the race lead.
Always a very strange day's racing the day before a time trial, because all the big hitters of the Tour de France want to take a back seat and save as much energy as possible for them, what is going to be the first most important rendezvous. For Cedric Vasseur, definitely a great day, remembering his day last year in Le Chatre. And Max Chiandri here, if this group can keep the advantage they have, could find himself with the yellow jersey on his shoulders this afternoon. But coming up to the line, they're not actually going to sprint, Phil, because for them, the most important thing is to keep the time bonuses, the time advantage they have so far.
Well, there's absolutely no point here at Chambouilly. 164 kilometres covered. Chiandri takes them through, and then comes Rodriguez and Vasseur in that order. But really, the attention here now is keeping this breakaway clear. But it won't happen because the main field is right on their heels, and they're almost all together now.
Back in the day.
They are all together on the streets of
Brive-La-Gaillarde,
and looks very much as if TVM are trying to lead up the sprint again for Blyleven's, but this time it's Lars Mikkelsen on the front, giving a very big turner right behind him, the new champion of Russia, Sergei Ivanov.
Well, Lars Mikkelsen, once winner of Ghent-Wevelgem, and now trying to have a good Tour de France here. But again, the sprinters are going to have their say, and the days are running out for the sprinters now. The mountains, the Pyrenees are not too far away. Another sharp left-hand bend, but Seiko have got the riders through on the inside, and Cipollini once again has got himself in the hunt here, and his tail is up after a victory yesterday.
Well, Ivanov still on the front there, queuing up behind him. The Seiko riders coming along the outside now. Andrea Taffy trying to get up to Verada, and also Tom Steels. He's bumping in there. You can see the champion of Italy bumping alongside there, Mario Cipollini, but Cipollini's not giving him any way at all.
And things getting a little too hot for Taffy now as he starts to fade out of it, going past the green jersey there of Eric Zabel. We've still got the teammates of Cipollini trying to hold control of the pace, and Ivanov still setting it, but you know, he should look over his shoulder because he hasn't got Blyleven's anywhere near him at the moment. In fact, he's got 2 Seiko guys, and they look as though they're lining up for the finish now. They'll go around a sharp left-hand turn here. They slam on the brakes and hold it as late as possible. Cipollini goes round there very, very close to the green jersey of Eric Zabel. In fact, he's 1 length behind him. Minali is just behind Cipollini, and the attack's coming from the teammates on the far right. Guidi also having a little dig here. Now, this is the lead out by the sprint domestiques as Zabel tries. Robbie McEwen's come up with a flyer on the outside as well. Well, there's a lot of work being left still to be done here. If Zabel, McEwen and Cipollini are going to get on terms. Now, Eric Zabel, see the line, he's gone for it. Cipollini's got his wheel, Minali's right behind him. Blyleven's is there too. Now, look at this, because Cipollini's coming over the top of Eric Zabel. He's misjudged it yet again in a sprint, and Minali was close. But on the line, Cipollini gets it 2 out of 2 days. Minali must have got second, and I think Jan Zurada got third there, it looked like him. But this was a very easy sprint finish, again perfectly judged by Mario Cipollini. Minali moves up onto the shoulder of Big Chipo, but it doesn't matter because that man knows when he's measured it to absolute perfection. Fred Moncassin beaten again. When will he ever win a stage in a bike race? He always finishes right up there, but never number 1. Mario Cipollini will be very unhappy with anything but number 1. He gets yet another win in the stage of the Tour de France. Number 7 now for him. He's not far off the 25 he's got in the Giro d'Italia. There's the result. And Moncassin steals Traversoni, Blyleven's. That really was a sprint.
I guess. Same time, yeah.
And a good 18th place for O'Grady. Yeah. So he keeps his yellow jersey on the eve of the time trial. 9 seconds ahead of George Hincapie. Bo Hamburger third, Jens Heppner fourth. It'll be a strange start order tomorrow. Festina, the world's #1 team, is out of the Tour de France after more than a week of speculation and the arrest of the team's management. The riders themselves were last night sensationally thrown out as well. And this really is a black day for the Tour de France. The news broken last night by the Director General, Jean-Marie Leblanc. But more on the implications in a moment. And I have to say, in the 26 years I've reported on this tour, I've never known anything quite like it. Now, these are the facts which have led up to this unprecedented decision. July 8, Festina's team masseur Willy Voigt was arrested on the French-Belgian borders and found to be carrying 400 vials of various drugs, including steroids. July 11, the tour started in Ireland. The tour organisation saying French justice must take its course. It has nothing to do with the tour. And the race started with the Festina team in attendance. The team's management was saying the arrested masseur was acting alone. July 13, stories began to filter from France that arrested Willy Voigt had claimed he was carrying the products under the instruction of the team's manager Bruno Roussel. July 15, when the race reached Cholet, police detained Roussel for questioning and also the team doctor Eric Reichert. July 16, the world body, the Union Cycliste Internationale, ordered the suspension of Bruno Roussel's manager's license. July 17, Roussel is alleged to have confessed to police that he allowed the doping of his riders under controlled medical supervision. And on the strength of that, Jean-Marie Leblanc, the Director General of the Tour de France, made this statement.
Monsieur, il est 22h50. Je sais bien que vous faites un métier difficile. Nous aussi parfois, parce que les informations que nous recevons sur ce Tour de France à propos de l'affaire Festina nous parviennent uniquement par la presse. Ce sont parfois des rumeurs, il y a parfois des contradictions, des interprétations. Et il y a une semaine en Irlande, nous vous avions dit qu'il fallait attendre que les faits soient avérés pour prendre une position ou une décision officielle dans l'affaire Festina. Depuis, l'Union cycliste internationale, elle, a déjà pris la décision de retirer sa licence à Bruno Roussel. Et ce soir, à Brive, à partir de 18h, après l'arrivée, nous avons reçu, toujours par le canal de la presse, des informations en provenance de Lille. C'est ainsi que l'avocat de Bruno Roussel, M. Thibault de Montbrial, a fait une déclaration à la presse dans la journée, et je le cite. Guillemets. Bruno Roussel a expliqué aux enquêteurs, lesquels avaient les éléments, les conditions dans lesquelles une gestion concertée de l'approvisionnement des coureurs en produits dopants était organisée entre la direction, les médecins, le soigneur et les coureurs. L'objectif était d'optimiser les performances sous strict contrôle médical afin d'éviter l'approvisionnement personnel sauvage des coureurs dans des conditions susceptibles de porter gravement atteinte à leur santé, comme ça a pu être le cas dans le passé. Fermez les guillemets. Ces quelques phrases nous ont paru terribles, à nous, organisateurs du Tour de France, organisateurs de la plus grande compétition cycliste du monde, car elle constitue ni plus ni moins un aveu. L'aveu que le dopage avait cours dans l'équipe Festina et qu'il était même organisé. Cela nous a paru suffisamment grave, et lorsque je dis nous, je parle de la direction du Tour de France, mais aussi des pouvoirs sportifs, représentés ici à mes côtés par le président du jury des commissaires de l'Union cycliste internationale, M. Martin Breuil, pour nous appuyer sur le règlement du Tour qui dit, article 29, je cite, « La direction de l'épreuve se réserve le droit d'exclure du Tour de France tout coureur ou tout membre de la course convaincu d'avoir enfreint les principes généraux de l'épreuve. » Et il me semble que l'éthique du sport, la moralité du Tour sont au premier rang de ces principes généraux de l'épreuve. C'est pourquoi, après avoir pris connaissance des derniers éléments d'information émanant du tribunal de Lille, après les avoir longuement pesés, nous avons pris la décision d'exclure l'équipe Festina du Tour de France à compter de ce jour. Décision difficile car nous avons beaucoup pensé aux coureurs, mais décision qui nous paraissait indispensable et que nous espérons salutaire, et pour le Tour de France et pour le cyclisme, et qui, nous l'espérons aussi, mettra un terme au climat malsain qui régnait sur l'épreuve depuis le départ de Dublin. Voilà, merci messieurs. L'équipe Festina est évidemment avertie de cette décision.
Well, there are the facts, and Jean-Marie Leblanc shocking the world press last night at 10 minutes to 11 French time. Let's now go to Gary Imlay as he reports now from the Festina Hotel.
This is the Chateau Castel Nouvelle, a luxury hotel for those seeking peace and quiet. There's been neither here today, though, because instead of going quietly, the Festina team responded to the tour organisation's announcement of their exclusion with an announcement of their own that they plan to try to ride today's time trial anyway. And that was the cue for a morning of frantic shuttle diplomacy. Shortly after 8:30, a helicopter delivered the tour's director sportif Jean-François Pecheur to the Chateau grounds, along with a senior official from cycling's ruling body, the UCI. They met with team leader Richard Virenque for about 20 minutes before heading into the annex where the rest of the Festina riders were staying.
Imagine you go to sleep.
That meeting broke up with no comment from either riders or race officials. But as Pecheur flew back to the race start at Mérignac with the Festina team official on board, mechanics who'd been instructed to prepare the riders' bikes as usual in the morning clearly got the word to take them out of the team truck and put them back. In Mérignac, more discussions, this time involving the Director General of the tour organisation Jean-Marie Leblanc and its President Jean-Claude Keely, only produced a restatement of their position.
They are not allowed to take the start in the tour today. But are you expecting them to arrive and try to take the start? I don't know. I don't hope so, but...
Back at the team hotel, acting manager Miguel Moreno announced a new development. The decision on whether to try to defy the ban would now be left up to the individual riders. The first Festina man due off today, Armin Maier, apparently decided against it, and his start time of 12:34 came and went without him. But just as it seemed that the chances of a confrontation were fading, a promised press conference was suddenly superseded by the reappearance of the mechanics who attached the bikes to the team cars, and the riders headed off, apparently in the direction of a head-on clash with the hierarchy of the Tour de France. Time, though, was clearly against them. Well, it's 18 minutes past 2, which was to have been Neil Stevens' start time today.
Good morning,
but as you can see, there's no sign of him in the start house. And apart from the continuing presence of their logos everywhere, it looks, after all the machinations of this morning, as though Festina's involvement in this year's tour is finally over. In fact, at the moment he should have been setting off, Stevens and his teammates were being told to their faces by Jean-Marie Leblanc the news that they'd previously refused to accept. They were out of the race. In the case of team leader Richard Virenque, in tears.
Looking exactly who might be coming across the gap. Hetler rode his first tour by... And indeed the Tour de France. Let's go to Plouay-Cholet in now as he looks into the background of the Festina team.
Festina team was formed in 1990, but their first appearance at the Tour de France was not until 1993. In 1998, such were their performances, they became the world's #1 ranked cycling team. 39-year-old Bruno Roussel, who joined Festina in 1993, had been an amateur cyclist and coached the Parisian US Chatre team. He entered the professional ranks in 1991 to manage the French RMO squad. Roussel brought Richard Virenque to Festina after the withdrawal of RMO from sponsorship at the end of 1992. Virenque has consistently performed at the Tour de France, offering Festina 4 King of the Mountains titles in as many years. Laurent Brochard won the world title for the team last October in San Sebastian. With a budget of £3.5 million, Festina's biggest coup was the signing of top Swiss rider Alex Zuller during the winter transfer season. In their 6th participation in the Tour de France, they appeared to be the major contenders to Team Telecom's dominance.
Well, I'm now joined by Paul Schoen, who, let's not forget, was a 7-time rider in the Tour de France. Paul, just how rife is doping?
Well, I can only hope it's not as bad as the picture that's been painted over the last few days, because it really has been painted as if all of the riders in the Tour de France have been taking drugs. I think what we'd have to remember is at the top of any sport, people will always be tempted to cheat.
And the trouble is, they have controls here every day. They have random checks. They're coming up negative. Are these controls a waste of time?
I think a lot of them are quite ineffectual, because if you go back to the former days of the East Germans, there were always doctors who were one step ahead of the doping controls.
And you think that in the case of the top teams here, the doctors are in control of the teams?
Yeah, I think the reason the team doctors are here is to make sure that the rider's health is not affected.
Now, what about the Tour de France itself? Does that mean that this race has no future now?
The Tour de France will continue, the sport of cycling will continue, because if you cast your mind back to 1988 and the Ben Johnson being positive in the Seoul Olympics, athletics is still around.
Indeed it is, and of course I'm just hoping that we can get rid of this cancer in the sport of cycling, And let's hope that some good comes out of this, and not only riders but officials get together and get rid of it. The Tour de France goes on, and the best time at the moment in the finish house has been set by Tyler Hamilton of the US Postal Service with 1 hour 16 minutes and 35 seconds. And now in the start house is the defending champion of the Tour. So a moment to compose himself for Jan Ullrich, asking the man holding him up to just straighten him up a little bit. He now concentrates on pulling off a ride that should see him move up the overall classification tonight.
Jerseys. I want one.
He showed a little bit of time trial form over the last 4 weeks in races in France and in Spain.
Couple of times a year, I was searching online, but so far no luck.
So Jan Ullrich is away. The first real test for him, Paul, since the prologue, I suppose, in Dublin.
He's had an excellent start to this year's Tour de France. He's been very quiet, no problems at all, and today is the event where he is one of the great specialists of the time trial, and for the moment he's looking very good indeed. But the time by Tyler Hamilton, Phil, at all the checkpoints was quite remarkable. He's the fastest man so far.
Well, hats off to Tyler Hamilton. He really has pulled out a special ride there, but Ullrich is pushing him all of the way, as he's now looking for the time that might match it. Hamilton's time, by the way, at the finish is 1 hour 16 minutes and 35 seconds, and Ullrich is running Hamilton, as you can see, pretty close here. He might well just go ahead of Tyler Hamilton's time. Tyler was fastest at every checkpoint. Now it's Ullrich, so he's on course.
He's on course, Phil, but he's not doing the damage I think he would have expected to, because he's only 35 seconds ahead of Tyler Hamilton. And coming up to the line, Bjarne Riis, the man from Denmark, 13th best time for him, 1 hour 19 minutes 09. But look at the speed, almost 44 kilometers an hour. It just goes to show it's very difficult around this circuit.
I'm a teenager again.
It's a little bit of a hilly circuit. Technically, it is very difficult. And because here we have Robbie McEwen in a little bit of spot of bother here, picked up by Alano. And McEwen just about staying within the regulations there, I think.
Staying within the regulations, but if it comes down to a sprint, I'm sure Robbie's going to get it. But the third time check on the course, Phil, Ullrich still the fastest, but only 35 seconds ahead of Tyler Hamilton. And Ekimov putting in a good ride, third place there for him, 1:47 down.
US Postal having a good tour. Here's Ekimov now as he gets to the finishing line. Hamilton's time of 1:16, but it looks as though Ekimov continued to slow a little bit over the closing kilometers. This is where Hamilton seemed to score his best rides, and Ekimov still riding though to give Postal a 1-2 in the finishing house at the moment, and Ekimov comes up 1:17.05, so they've got first and second place on the finishing line. But in fact Ullrich the only rider to beat 1 hour at the 45 kilometer check, and he's continuing to look extremely good.
And it's over the last 5 or 6 kilometers that this course really hurts. That's where the biggest damage is done, and that's where most of the riders so far have in fact started to crack. And look at the time here. Ullrich is coming up. The time to beat is that of Tyler Hamilton, 1:16.35, and Ullrich is going to walk all over it.
Well, between 45 and 53, Ullrich and Hamilton were riding at exactly the same speed, so he stopped picking up time on Hamilton, but it looks as though he's had a really strong finish. He must have been just relaxing a little bit over that third quarter, because now Ullrich is going to come in here and deliver the blow that everybody was worried about. Was he fit or wasn't he fit? Was he really overweight? Well, here comes his answer now, because he's going to be the best time by sure. Ullrich then, the first man to knock Hamilton off the top of the leaderboard. 1:15.25, and nobody's going to beat that.
Nobody will. 46 kilometers an hour. A remarkable performance by the man who has been dogged by overweight this year, and everybody said he couldn't get ready for the Tour de France, but I think he's answered all of his critics this afternoon.
Well, 4.5 kilometers to go. Looks like Laurent Jalabert further down the course here, but his time checks are slower than Jan Ullrich. It's a little rise here, then a drop down into the finishing town of Corrèze. This is a beautiful area of France, but here's the arrival now of Bobby Julich, another man who is confirming himself as a real challenger in the Tour this year. Third best at the minute, 1:16.43.
Tough day for Stuart O'Grady, though, wearing the yellow jersey. He's last man to start on the road, and look at that, he's lost almost 2.5 minutes now to Jan Ullrich. He won't be wearing the yellow jersey this evening, but he's had 3 glorious days.
Jalabert coming up towards the finish, and another good ride from Laurent Jalabert, the new champion of France. 4th slot for him. Alano, well, he's done one on Alano, because Alano's losing ground here again. It looks as though he's disappointing when it really matters. Abraham Alano races up towards the line. At the moment he's holding 6th. He'll have to be careful, he could drop another place here as he comes up towards the finish. So Alano once again is not delivering the goods when it really, really matters. 1:17 and a little bit still to come. It must seem an awful long way to the line for him. He still holds on to 6th, 44.83 average.
Well, look at that. George Hincap is coming up to the line. He's gone over in 1:20. Right behind him, the man who started last on the road, Stuart O'Grady. He's almost pulled back 3 minutes on the American. A good ride for him, Phil. 15th over the line, 1 hour 18:42. But a fantastic ride by Tyler Hamilton. I must admit, the revelation of this time trial this afternoon.
A glorious ride by Tyler, getting second place, just 1 minute and 10 seconds slower in the end than Jan Ullrich, and Bobby Julich in there as well. Is this going to be the year of the Americans in the Tour de France? But there is the rider. He's got the yellow jersey. Are we going to see him carried all the way to Paris now? Jan Ullrich, just like Miguel Indurain did, has reclaimed yellow in a time trial. 1:18 ahead of Bo Hamburger. At the same time for Bobby Julich, Jalabert is still there, but the mountains are still ahead. Looking further down the list, O'Grady slips down to 8th place. Olano is there in 9th. And Evgeny Berzim, we haven't seen too much of him yet. He's hovering in 12th at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And so we move on now to stage number 8. This is the beautiful town of Brive. We're heading now 190.5 kilometers to Montauban.
Very difficult day in store for these riders too, because this afternoon is going to be the hottest day of the Tour de France so far, with temperatures creeping up to 40 degrees Celsius, and for the first time this year, the yellow jersey on the shoulders of Jan Ullrich. Stefano Zanini, after Festina pulled out, is the new leader of the King of the Mountains competition, and that'll be quite a surprise for him.
Well, he got the lead in Ireland, which seems an awful long time ago now, but it's just on 1 week since the race started, and he's got back into the polka dot jersey more or less by default.
First sprint of the day coming up here. Again, the break has gone clear. Interestingly enough, Jackie Durand leading them across there. This man is an aggressive rider. He's been on the attack since Ireland, looking for the right breakaway, and once again, he's got himself into a very good position. On the back there for Seiko is Eddie Mazzolini.
And that breakaway forming almost immediately as they approach the sprint there, and he's still clear at the moment. And the big field, look to me, Paul, they've assessed the riders in that break, and they don't seem to be reacting too much.
Philippe Gaumont coming across there. He's riding for Cofidis. He's spotted that this is a very difficult move here, and also making it across there, the champion of Italy, Andrea Taffi, reveling in these conditions this afternoon, going straight by that breakaway group there, joining onto the back wheel of Laurent Debian, the other rider from Cofidis, making 2 riders from that French team in the leading group.
Well, after Jackie Durand, I reckon Andrea Taffi has been the most aggressive rider in this tour so far, always in our camera frame. But I have to say that Jackie Durand has been the aggressive rider. He's been in so many moves, and if you catch a glimpse of his number, then you'll see his number is red. That's a new competition in the Tour this year, in as much that they give the red number to the man voted the leader of the most aggressive rider competition. And there's been no doubt it's been him. 16.5 kilometers to go. Here we are now at La Française.
And you can see now Philippe Gaumont from Cofidis going to the front. He's decided now that his teammate Laurent Debian, the highest placed rider in the overall standings here, has a great chance of taking the yellow jersey. So he's just going to sacrifice himself, keep the pace high. And look at the time gap, Phil, 9:41. If they can hold on to a certain amount of this advantage, then Debian will be the new leader of the Tour this afternoon.
Well, this breakaway has been solid, but now the Once boys and the Telecom boys are trying to reduce the gap. It went up at one stage to 8 minutes and 25 seconds. It's now gone up to 9:24. So this is the day the peloton are taking their tea break, I think. They've assessed that nobody can affect the overall lead because these riders have lost big time over the period. But you know, what is going to happen, Paul, is that Ullrich has chosen, I think, not to defend his yellow jersey. He's going to lose his lead if this break stays at this sort of time gap.
Well, none of these riders are men who really could stand up highly in the overall rankings of a 3-week race like this. So Ullrich, I think, has decided to save his team a little bit because they've got another 2 weeks to work at the front, which is why he's given this group of riders their chance for glory. But it's all come back together under 2 kilometers to go now, and Andrea Taffi very aggressive at the front, making sure that none of these splits go clear.
Well, best placed is Laurent Debian. He started the day 4 minutes and 30 seconds off yellow, and I don't know, he comes from northern France, actually, the Cofidis rider here, and surely he's not going to pull on the yellow jersey tonight. What a dream that would be.
It certainly will be. In third position there, Laurent Debian, looking over his shoulder, but Philippe Gaumont, his teammate, is no longer in this group. He did all of the work to make sure they could keep as much of their advantage as possible, and now he's just sat up and he's going to cruise to the finish.
And the first of all attack comes here from Mazzolini. He's made the running now. They're all going to feel free to attack towards the finishing line. Taffy, as always, ever so vigilant, chases down another Italian.
This has been a very hard stage, Phil. The real heat has come on the Tour de France this afternoon. Mazzolini is being nailed back here by Andrea Taffy, but you can see just how difficult it is. And that looked like Luke had just gone off the back there from Lotto after his earlier attack. They're all back together again and in control, Andrea Taffy.
And maybe Lauka will get back on because he's keeping his head down for the Lotto boys. Joined the Lotto squad this year. Ex-Festina rider. I bet he's glad he made the change. And now Taffy at the front, now looking over somebody else to making the run. Well, the last news we had on the peloton, they were 8 minutes 15 seconds down, which means if it stays like that, Debian is racing to the yellow jersey in any case. So thoughts of Ulrich leading this tour to the finish, well, they're out the window now. But there'll be a little time lost on the sprint here because they're playing cat and mouse. Taffy has been forced to lead it out. He's not a brilliant sprinter. He likes to win alone. Former double classic winner Andrea Taffy, and he's now going for the line here. But it looks to me as though Taffy is going to be taken on by Jackie Giron. Giron, is he going to get a stage win? Yes, he is. That's his third ever stage victory in a Tour de France, including a surprise win in the prologue a couple of years ago. But Jackie Giron, Paul, well, I think it's absolutely just after being given the most aggressive rider prize virtually every day of this tour so far.
And a well-judged sprint too. You see, Taffy was forced after chasing all those breakaways to lead out the sprint, but at the end of it, Jackie Giron waited till the very last minute using a huge gear. He comes over the top of the Italian. He judged it to perfection, and certainly I don't think anyone can say that he robbed that victory this afternoon because he's been there since the very first day of this tour.
So that's the result. Taffy gets second, all of those riders in the breakaway. Now we're on to stage 9. Overall, Laurent Debian, the new leader of the tour.
Things get interesting.
At midday today, it was into the cauldron of the Tom. The 9th stage of the Tour de France heads for the mountains. A daring escape yesterday gave the race its 6th leader. Laurent Debian brought the smiles back to the French. He leads the Italian Andrea Taffy by 14 seconds. Stage winner Jackie Giron by 43. Jan Ullrich sits to 5th. 3 minutes 21 seconds down. So Laurent Debian goes to Pau in yellow, but is he good enough to win overall? The answer is probably no. 127th last year, he has no known climbing ability, and in fact yesterday he found himself in the right place at the right time. The Cofidis team in fact had attacked thinking only of winning the stage. Instead they got the bonus of the leader of the Tour de France. Jan Ullrich's Telecom team, well, they decided not to chase. They saw the right combination in the breakaway to take all of the pressures off their team captain. The yellow jersey is the marked man of the tour, and in hot, humid conditions it made sense to allow a move to succeed, providing it contained none of the accepted long-term candidates for the win. Telecom succeeded in turning the attention to the Cofidis team, hoping now to give Ulrich an easier ride to the base of the Pyrenees. It means the tiring presentations and photographs fell to Debian for some hours last night, but for the Tour first-timer in yellow, he loved it and will lead on the road to Pau today.
It's going to be a very difficult day on the road to Pau as well. Racing conditions sunny, and once again high temperatures, 40 degrees Celsius, and hardly any wind in the air.
And Laurent Debian, the 6th different leader of this year's Tour de France. The record, by the way, is 8, and that was set in 1987 when Stephen Roche ran out the winner of the Tour de France. But despite the conditions today, and you can see they're pretty warm, one man who isn't going to make it, Mario Cipollini, has retired. But even so, we thought you'd like to know a little bit more about him.
Spinach wheels. That was what it does. The UCI made a miracle.
Although the race is 23 days long, Chippo has never made it past the first fortnight. Of course, he usually enjoys himself while he's here, modelling a selection of his holiday outfits and descending on French finish lines like something that's come not only to win the stage, but destroy local crops.
Molti giovani seguono quella che è la mia tendenza, cioè il ciclismo colorato, il ciclismo diverso. Cipollini ha portato colore diverso, fantasia, di modo che abbiamo...
In 5 tours so far, though, Mario has never got further than stage 11. Perhaps he just doesn't like being away from his clothes.
Faccio 40 vestiti ogni stagione, scarpe ne ho
400
paia. Ma io ho dovuto cambiare casa per riuscire a mettere tutte le cose, l'abbigliamento, le camicie, gli abiti, le scarpe. È una mia vera passione.
Certainly he seems to perform better when his wardrobe's close by, having completed his home tour of Italy and won 25 stages along the way. This year he managed 4, celebrating Formula One style and donning the Maillot Ronaldo in honour of his favourite footballer. Unfortunately for him, he had about as good a weekend as Ronaldo, starting with his prediction of a Brazilian World Cup win.
Je pense qu'il gagne le Brésil. Combien? 2-1.
In fact, 2-1 turned out to be his ratio of crashes to wins in the opening week, although of course he has the chance to equalise today. The Tour's most glamorous sprint, though, is the final one on the Champs-Élysées, and the Tour's most glamorous sprinter knows that until he completes the race, that will always elude him, along with the one item of clothing that his hefty contract can't buy him.
Sì, è l'unica maglia importante nel ciclismo europeo che mi manca nella mia collezione. Devo arrivare a Parigi, possibilmente maglia verde e vincere l'ultima tappa a Parigi. Sarebbe una realizzazione professionale veramente importante e anche qualcosa
He was a well-rounded person. I mean, of course, he was a playboy, but...
Well, it won't happen now for Mario Cipollini. What a character. We've come to the sprint here in Pau now, and Leon Van Bon is going to take it out. Well, he's waited a long time. He rode his first Tour in 1994. In fact, he's never finished the Tour de France yet. He gets the stage win, and Laurent Debian has brought the race to the foot of the Pyrenees as leader. 14 seconds ahead of Taffy, Giron, Lauke, Ulrich. Poised there in 5th place now to grab back the Maillot Jaune. Alano's big day is coming. He lies 12th. Bjorn Rees, the 96 winner, is 25th. And Marco Pantani continues to ascend. He's now up to 47th, but 8 minutes 25 seconds off the pace. Well, this is what they've been waiting for, Paul. Pau to Luchon, 196 kilometres, 168 riders left in the race.
I don't think they were expecting this, Phil. The weather has changed dramatically overnight, and the rain clouds have come down, and the top of the clouds very misty indeed, and it may well be the last day in the yellow jersey for Laurent Debian. Hardly any wind, but you can see the temperature has dropped almost 20 degrees Celsius overnight. Today, it will only be a high of 20.
Well, you can tell Paul Show is not a gambler, because I'll guarantee that it'll be the last day for Laurent Debian in yellow, with the Col d'Aubisque, the Col de Tourmalet, the Col d'Aspin, and then we go over the Col de Persourde. Look at the conditions here on the Aubisque.
Well, Cedric Vasseur going over the top there in first position, but Rodolfo Massi from Casino accelerating behind, looking for second place over the top of this mountain and trying to get in terms with him, his own teammate Alberto Elli. But on the descent, Phil, the first serious crash, that's Francesco Casagrande.
Casagrande is down, the leader of the Cofidis team. There's a number of riders gone down here now. Well, all the way over the top, everybody was warned of the treacherous conditions on the descent, and now just look at this. Riders are sprinkling like confetti all over the edge of the Aubisque, and there's a number of retirements being announced as well.
You can see Vasseur's taking it very carefully on that descent, but in fact Casagrande has gone down a second time there. 16th overall this morning. He was hoping to climb up in the standings today, but I think, Phil, he's taking a beeline for the team car.
Well, that is a great shame here, but this time I think Casagrande is a little bit injured on that second fall. His teammate's been told to ride on and hopefully get through the time gap, because, of course, eliminations do apply. That's Nicolas Jalabert. Now look at this here on the list. Out on the Aubisque, Konishev, Brunel, Fanini, etc. We're moving up towards the top of the Col du Tourmalet here. This is the high point in the Pyrenees at 2,115 metres, Paul. Alberto, Elli, Vasseur and Massi are still clear.
A great move by Casino. They got two riders in the front group. Cedric Vasseur, I wouldn't have expected to see him on a stage like this, but he certainly is a courageous rider. Leading them over the top is Alberto Elli, just ahead of Vasseur, and somewhere in the mist, Massi takes third spot.
Well, Cedric Vasseur is turning out to be quite a conqueror of the Pyrenees today. Here's the main peloton. Well, it's hardly a big field anymore now. It's been stripped by a number of riders. We understand another faller out on the Aubisque too, Abraham Olano, but he continues. There's the order over the top of the Col de Tourmalet, and 120 kilometres, that's 76 kilometres still left to ride. This now is the top of the Col d'Aspin, and again a sprint, and it looks as though Massi, Vasseur and Elli detached slightly from those two front runners.
Now Ulrich taking over control at the front of the group now. All of his teammates have done their job perfectly this afternoon, and now's the time when he has decided to put his hand on the Tour de France and assert his authority, looking over to see what sort of damage is being done, and right on his wheel, Giuseppe De Grande of Mapei.
And the tempo has picked up the first of three because this is Ellie now coming back into the fold. Massey and Vasseur are still up ahead, but they're closing in pretty rapidly. And you have to say now that Jan Ullrich is looking every bit the defending champion of this year's Tour de France.
He is just sitting at the front, taking out a pace there, making sure that nobody attacks him. In second place, De Grande. Right behind there as well, another Telecom rider, Bjarne Riis, and Escartine in the green jersey of Kelme, riding an excellent Tour de France, and still in there, Bobby Julich.
Leonardo Pipili also here, but you know, looking at the face of Bjarne Riis, we only see it occasionally. It looks as though he's really suffering right now and having a tough time of it. Alano is missing from this group. Pantani is here. But Alano a faller today as well. Conditioned a little bit better here on the Peyresourde, which incidentally was where Tom Simpson lost his yellow jersey in the Tour de France back in 1962. That's the only time a British rider's ever worn the yellow jersey.
No help at all coming to Jan Ullrich at the moment. He's showing that he is the main contender for this year's Tour de France. Just on the back there as well, that was Luc Leblanc riding for Polti. So really, as Jan Ullrich has said, this is the most important day when the big hitters are going to come out and play. There's the Pirate. There in the yellow jersey of Mercatone Uno is Marco Pantani. And on the back of the group, you can see what sort of damage is being done.
Bobby Julich in there as well. But if you want to know where the yellow jerseys, the last time check we got on he was 26 minutes behind this group, and I think he'll be even further than that right now.
Great to see Marco Pantani. We haven't seen him at all in the Tour de France, and this is the first time he's in fact got out of the saddle, and this is an attack by Pantani. I thought he was just going to move to the front, but he's decided this is the time to go.
Well, Marco Pantani has waited for the mountains for just over a week, and now he is beginning to sprout his wings again and go for the summit. He's got to go early on this stage because he'll need a good descent down into Luchon for the stage win, and he has to catch the leaders on the road yet. There are still two of them. Massey is ahead. Vasseur is also ahead, but Pantani has opened the gaps because Ullrich could not respond after setting the pace like that.
Ullrich was not the only person who couldn't respond there. In fact, I think most of the riders in the group looked the other way when Marco Pantani attacked, because nobody has the acceleration that this little man from Italy has when it comes to attacking on these climbs, picking his way through the motorbikes. I'm fairly sure quite round the corner there he'll be seeing Cedric Vasseur. Vasseur just hoping, I think, to get over the summit, still with a slight advantage over the group. But Massey's doing the ride of his life.
Well, Massey is unbelievable today because he's now shed Cedric Vasseur. There's Vasseur just to the other side of the motorbikes. The crowd enormous here on the Peyresourde, despite the finish only just over the top. You've got a descent of some 15 kilometres once you're over the top of this climb. Vasseur has ridden great today, but he was never going to hang on to the Pirates.
Wasn't much chance to even say ciao there as Marco Pantani flies by. Just one man left off the road, and the gap around about 35 seconds. So Pantani has a great chance of pulling back Massey before we get to the top of the Col de la Peyresourde.
Well, he certainly looks good now, Marco Pantani. He was almost last in the prologue in Dublin. That sort of indicated he had no real interest in winning the Tour de France, but he said he wanted to win stages, and now this is his first chance. But he is finding the defiance from Rodolfo Massey something of a problem. Massey is still clear. We can't see him, Paul, but he's around about 40 seconds in front.
This is what Marco Pantani's looking for now. 1 kilometre left to go to the summit, and then it's all downhill to the finish line. So Pantani is a fairly good descender when it comes to finishes like this, so he may well still have a chance of picking up Massey on the run into the finish. But look at the damage he's done behind. Nobody in sight.
Well, Vasseur has been quickly dispatched down the line there to the chasing group, which still contains Ullrich. Let's go further on because this is Rodolfo Massey. Casino continuing their incredible season, which has taken them right up the team rankings in the world to number 2. And now all of those peaks are behind the race today, and they won't be unhappy about that. The Obisque has really turned this Tour de France around with Alano crashing. Casagrande now out of the Tour, the leader of Cofidis. Good news for them is Bobby Julich's riding pretty well. He's in that chase group along with Jan Ullrich and also Luc Leblanc. But this man is going so well, and this rider here is not really catching him.
Amazing, because it looks as if he's going so much faster than Massey, but Massey's holding on to that slender lead. This is the group behind. A good move there, sitting in back position wearing number 51. Bogard, the champion of Holland, he's happy to be in the group with Jan Ullrich, but over the top, Massey still has an advantage over Marco Pantani.
And the Pirates are getting into top gear now because he's got 15 kilometres all downhill, just 10 miles to try and get across and do what he wants to do in this year's Tour de France. That's win all of the mountain stages. But I think he'll be a bit surprised by the form of Rodolfo Massey today. Over the top there, Massey's done enough now to claim the lead in the King of the Mountains competition. He was up there in second place over the Obisque. He was third over the Col de Tourmalet. He won the climb of the Aspin. He won the climb of the Peyresourde. There's a lot of points in the bag there. This the chase group, Rue Leblanc, De Grande, Ulrich, they're all in that group. And this rider has managed to get away. Now, can he use his descending skills? And they are considerable. Can he cross the gap? At the top, it was 38 seconds.
Well, the great thing about the first part of the descent of the Peyresourde is it's so open you can actually look across the bends and see what advantage you have or disadvantage on the rider.
I don't think they are looking across the bends.
I'm sure Marco Pantani can see Rodolfo Massey, and he just has to judge the corners. But Massey is making an incredible descent. Look at the speed here. He's tipping 100 kilometers an hour. That's 62 miles an hour on this descent. So Marco Pantani is going to have to do something very special to pull back the lone leader.
Well, he's going to have to take a few risks, and I hope he's checked his brakes because these corners are pretty tight as he goes down the mountain. But, you know, Marco Pantani is going to have to do something, I think, impossible to close the gap at those sort of speeds. He's trying to get the most out of his slipstream here, and he'll have to watch where he sits for the next few minutes.
Very risky position to get yourself into. 10 kilometers remaining for Rodolfo Massey, and still the time gap is not coming down. The last split we had over race radio was 35 seconds on Marco Pantani, so it's staying exactly the same down this descent.
Well, we've had him at 38 seconds over the top. They've given us 35 seconds on the descent, and it's gone back to 36 seconds now. So we can say they are coming into Luchon locked at the same distance apart here as they were at the top of the climb. What's the latest time check on the board? I couldn't quite get a glimpse of that, Paul, but it was close.
35 seconds, I think it said on the board there. Massey now starting to hurt. He's been away since the 54th kilometre when they got away on the Col de l'Aubisque, and he rode across with his teammate to Cédric Vasseur. They joined up on the descent of that climb, and then he's been in front ever since the top of the Peyresourde, and now he's really pushing himself to try and stay clear of Marco Pantani.
Well, some of the teams have lost their big names today because Bueno Hora has also gone out, and we fancied him in the mountains, but the weather proved too bad. That glacial descent. Now it looks as though Rodolfo Massey might have a touch of cramp in that leg, but it shouldn't matter now because he's not very far to go to complete the descent down into Luchon. The last winner here, by the way, was the British rider Robert Miller back in 1983. That looks like Ulrich there is trying to do something special as well. Now, has he got away from them on the top of the climb?
Well, Ulrich trying to keep the pace up high, being chased down by Michael Bogart there, and coming up Jose Maria Jimenez of Banesto. He realizes now how important it is to try and chase back Marco Pantani. He realizes the danger of a man like this in the mountains. He doesn't want to give him too much of an advantage on any of these mountain stages because Pantani will be climbing up in the overall standings.
He knows you can deal with Pantani in the time trials, but you've got to keep your options open on the descents here now. But Massey is heading down towards the victory. There's no real gains coming from Marco Pantani. He's approximately only 25 seconds ahead, too, of the Ulrich group now.
Well, in fact, a lot of energy going into this chase by Marco Pantani, and he's not getting the big times that he wanted to, but what he's thinking about now is winning the stage down in Luchon. And for the moment, kilometers are ticking away. 2 kilometers to go for this man at the front, Rodolfo Massey, and it's all flat now down to the finish line.
It gets a little bit easy to say the least now. A sharp right here, it's a flat road, bears round to the left and goes into this lovely little spa town. Ulrich has been handled by the rest of the group. Luc Leblanc has come back up, and they're all back together again in the chase. There's only about 6 or 7 of them left, though, from the peloton today. As now, this is the part you can actually sit up and enjoy now. Massey looked clearly over the cars then. He won't have seen Marco Pantani as he now goes down through the centre of Luchon and turns towards the finish. This is going to go down as one of the greatest wins of his career. By the way, here's a rider who hasn't ridden the Tour de France. I think 1990 was the last time that he rode the Tour de France. He's back big time now.
8 years later,
he comes up towards the line.
This
is going to be only win number 11 of his career. Rodolfo Massey, the new leader of the King of the Mountains, gets the stage in Luchon. The clock starts now. And here's the approach of Pantani, Paul, but there's still a long way to go to the line.
On a very good stage.
Pantani tried, he moved at the right time on the Col de la Peyresourde there. He thought he had the advantage. He thought with the speed that he has on the climb that he could pull back the lone leader. In fact, he wasn't able to. Over the top of the climb, it was 31 seconds, and still Pantani forcing himself to keep up the pace because he wants to get to the finish line. All he can think about now is the advantage he's going to get over the Jan Ullrich group, which is closing on him quite rapidly too.
So second place to Marco Pantani, just over 20 miles an hour, despite the crossing of these huge giant coals today. Incredible speeds. This tour is still on a record schedule, by the way. Here's the race now for third place. Ulrich leads them out, but Michael Bogart, who's trained specifically for the tour, second-time champion of Holland, and he's now going to take out the sprint, being challenged by Bobby Julich and De Grande. Bobby Julich's coming good. Can he hold it? But Bogart just on the line from Bobby Julich. But Julich really has found himself in this week of racing in the Tour de France. Well, the happy face there of Rodolfo Massi, and he is now the winner of the stage by 36 seconds in the end. But you see, Bogart brought the rest in at 59 seconds, and so the new leader of the Tour de France is now Jan Ullrich. He is the man in yellow. Can he keep it?
Now let's see what's next. Here we go. Second part is coming up. You get the picture, there's 1,000 words.
Is tomorrow before we cross over the valleys towards the Alps, and we go to Plateau de Bailly, a distance of 170 kilometers next. 151 riders left in the Tour, as this rider, 131, Casagrande, crashes out of the Tour. Cofidis have lost their apparent leader of the team. There were others too, like Bueno Hora, and this was Jens Voigt. That's the way to lose your King of the Mountains jersey. He was lucky that's all he lost. Another man who retired today, Philippe Gaumont of Cofidis, and this is the judge showing all of the numbers he's collected so far. A massive retirement list, some of them the stars of the Tour de France. But little Marco Pantani played his cards, couldn't quite get up for the stage win, but nonetheless Massi got the victory. This is where the favourites are now. Bjarne Riis is into 10th place, looking further up the list. Bobby Julich right in there now, but Jan Ullrich is again the man to beat in this Tour.
Ja gut, da trennt sich die Spreu vom Weizen und ich hoffe, dass ich morgen wieder gute Beine am Berg habe und morgen ist sicherlich noch ganz, ganz schwer. Ich bin die Etappe ja schon vor 2 Wochen in der Route Süd gefahren.
2 Wochen.
Und ja, also es war eine ganz, ganz schwere Etappe und ich hoffe, dass das Wetter wieder besser wird. Also es ist ganz kalt und das hält natürlich unwahrscheinlich viel Energie raus.
Well, Jan Ullrich has got part of his wish. It's an absolutely idyllic day in the Pyrenees today, and after yesterday, the riders are going to be pretty happy about that. They certainly are rolling away, 170 kilometres they're facing up to now as we go to a new finish in the Tour, Paul, the Plateau de Bailly.
But one or two of the riders do know this climb because it's been used twice in the past in the race that starts just before the Tour de France called the Route du Sud. In fact, as we look at the conditions, the riders will be racing in again. The temperature's starting to climb once again, and the riders, I think, a little happier than they were yesterday.
And the first challenge of Col de Monte, made famous by the crash of Lewis O'Connor back in 1971 when he was beating Eddie Merckx by almost double figures in the Tour, and we'll never know if he would have beaten Eddie because he crashed out.
Chance here just to see the speed these riders attain on the descent, but today is going to be a very difficult day for the riders because that final finish up to the Plateau de Bailly is a serious finish to a stage of the Tour de France. In fact, Jan Ullrich, wearing the yellow jersey this morning, broke his contract with Telecom to come down to the Route du Sud so they could actually try this climb out before he came here to the Tour.
So he knows what's in store now, but he rode so well yesterday. Can he do it for a second day running here in the Pyrenees? His tempo riding kept him not right back in the Tour. He put him right on top of the leaderboard. He was wise, I think, to lose the lead after the time trial. I wonder if his form is really as good as we think. Anyway, coming up towards the top of the Col de Monte, and it is Alberto Eli again in the action. I'm a little bit surprised he's attacking his teammate Massi here, Paul, to take the points.
In fact, I can't work out the logical decision there to do that unless he thinks that his teammate Massi will not last the distance of the Tour de France here, and the riders approaching the memorial to Fabio Casatelli, who died in the Tour de France in 1995. Many of the riders here knew him very well, and his family turned out this year to witness the Tour de France going past this monument.
Well, further up the climb, Alberto Eli again going for the sprint ahead of his teammate Rodolfo Massi. Very strange, but he gets more points there at the top of that second category climb. And we move on now to the Col de la Cour. And the rider in the lead here is Roland Meyer, and he's only briefly in the lead. He's gone over the top first, and he's gone straight off by hitting the barriers on the descent there, Paul.
Taking too much of a risk on the corners there, trying to pull himself into good condition, but you see, this is exactly what happens, but he has got up and he has control of himself again, and he goes over the top of the next climb in first position.
So we call the pole, and Meyer is first there. Stefan Erlo goes over in second, a minute 53 back. The main field containing Ulrich at the moment, Paul, just over 4 minutes down, but we're down towards the climb away from Tarascon now, and this is on the plateau itself.
Excellent riding, still Meyer up in front there, putting a great performance in by Cofidis today. I think somewhat liberated, but you know, Phil, there's been a puncture at the bottom of the climb here, and the yellow jersey, Jan Ulrich, is off the back of the main group, being paced back at the moment by his own teammates.
Well, there's Zabel. He was going back. I think he's gone straight off the back now because the pressure's gone on at the front of the group here, which is down to about 35-40 riders. Ulrich is being dragged very quickly by the scruff of the neck back into this pack because the climb has already started to bite. And it looks as though his two remaining teammates, Bolts is one of them, is doing some tremendous work to get him back in, but they've had to react so quickly.
You couldn't have punctured at a worse possible time because the climb has started in earnest.
You're right there, Paul, and he's had a little bit of a problem getting back here, but look at this now. Ulrich in the end has destroyed his teammates, but he is powering back up to the group. Now he's got to pick his way through these riders and get right back to the head just to calm them all down.
That's the most difficult thing for him now because a lot of these riders are just sitting up at the bottom of the climb. In fact, I think he's riding himself right into the front group because there is the leader of the King of the Mountains, Rodolfo Massi, and a great job of work has been done by his teammate there, and Ulrich is now back in the front group.
Well, George Tochnik was the last man to stay with Ulrich. He's now fallen away, but he's seen his leaders safely back in the pack. They are coming back together, but this is really going to be a showdown now on this last climb to the top of the plateau.
On the front there, right-hand side, in the blue jersey of US Postal, Jean-Cyril Robin riding a very good Tour de France. Pat Jonker is there as well for Rabobank. And Laurent Jalabert, who feels this year he's got a great chance of finish highly in the Tour de France, is also present at the front. In the group as well, just to the right-hand side, you can see Kevin Livingstone.
Well, Livingstone for Cofidis. Cofidis are riding very well in this race as a team, despite the fact they have lost their leader, Casagrande. There's a little present of Pat Jonker from another Dutchman, and that's Michael Bogart. Jonker brought up in Australia, in fact, but they think he's Dutch over here. He speaks the language fluently, comes from a Dutch background. The pace on this climb is very, very fast, and sooner or later somebody is going to crack.
There's Ulrich in the back of that group of riders. He has done a magnificent job to come back, Phil, because that was the worst time to puncture right at the bottom of the climb, and he's pulled his way right through the field of all of the riders in the Tour de France to join the front group behind the leader on the road, Roland Meyer.
Well, this looks like Manuel Beltran of Benesto. He was brought in to be a strongman alongside Abraham Olano, but Olano has gone out of the Tour today. He retired very early on from the injury sustained on the descent of the Obisque, and now Pantani has decided to go just like he did yesterday, but the riders are not so far in front of him this time.
Second time in 2 days, the big reaction, Phil, coming from the yellow jersey himself, Jan Ulrich. He knows the danger of the Pirate, Elefantino, Dumbo, a whole host of nicknames for this man, and he doesn't want him to go clear on this climb, and he's chasing him down.
Well, this climb takes it up to 1,747 metres. There's been a reaction from Ulrich. He's not going to allow Pantani to do what he did yesterday. A little bit surprised to see Jalabert still in the company at this level of space. But you know, Ulrich has looked as though he was coming up, Paul, but the gap has opened again.
He hasn't closed the gap. There is Beltran on the right-hand side. He's being picked up by the flying Italian. And in fact, I think Jan Ulrich has sat up now. He's not going to try and stay in the slipstream of the Italian. He's just going to try and ride up this climb at his own tempo.
As soon as he looked over his shoulder to see if Jalabert would give him a hand, it was obvious he was right on his limit. Jalabert was not going to give him a hand, and in fact Ulrich has had to pick up the pace again. Now the climber has lifted it one notch higher. Can he do it again?
Well, Beltran tried to hold on to his back wheel there, but there was no chance at all. In fact, he's cracked, and he soon will be back in the group with the yellow jersey. No help coming to Jan Ulrich from anyone else in that group. He's the leader. He has to do all of the work himself, and Bobby Julich is still there.
Well, the face a little bit more pain than it was yesterday on the parasol for Jan Ulrich. Roland Meyer still in front just as the pirate starts to come up. This is Bjorn Rees here. He was the one that stayed in the group, holding position when Ulrich punctured. But you know, it looks to me now as though he's suffering. He's just come across that first gap.
Well, the Devils come out once again to help the riders spur them on, and the man he's hoping he can spur on to victory this afternoon is Roland Meyer. What a revelation in this year's Tour de France. A magnificent ride for him despite that crash, but Brawl really coming down on him now, Marco Pantani.
Well, still in the group here, Leonardo Pipoli, sensational climber in the Giro, but now looking like he might be something of a sensation in the Tour de France. And Ulrich getting all the fluid down here now because they tried to contain Pantani. They've so far failed to do so, but there's still a long way to go up this climb. Jalabert also seems to be losing a little bit of his steam. And Reese is yo-yoing at the back, but he's coming back on again.
He's fighting, he's a courageous rider. He won the Tour de France 2 years ago, and he wants to try and stay in that group with Jan Ullrich so that if it does come to a situation where they're in difficulty, he'll at least be on hand to help the German.
Well, this is Roland Meyer. He's had a marvellous ride today and he's still out there. Don't forget, he's been off the side of the Col de la Cour. He scrambled back up into second place when he got back on his bike, and he's back in the front now on his own. Pantani, I was about to say he's coming up, Paul, but he's up.
Well, it's amazing. He's actually knocked back 1 minute on Renero in no time at all. He comes alongside the Swiss rider there, looks across at him, and now I think he will attack almost immediately.
But he's taken a little bit of a while to get up alongside Roland Meyer there, and he's not pedalling away from him yet. Meyer just remaining his concentration there, hardly looking across at the Pirate, but he's trying to visibly lift his pace. He knows the acceleration is coming. Here it comes now from Pantani. Such a typical attitude of a climber. Lift the tempo one more notch and break your rivals. 50 seconds is now the gap. It's beginning to look a little bit serious for Ulrich.
Ulrich's not panicking though. Look at the face, complete control. He's looking around to see who is in the group with him. Bobby Julich sitting in second position. He won't attack at the moment, Julich, because his teammate is still up the road. But look at this. Jalabert now has been dropped. Alongside him as well, the champion of Spain in the orange and red jersey there, Angel Casero, and Beltran, who earlier was on the attack. But Marco Pantani now alone in the lead.
And the plateau living true to form as we break out of the shadow of the trees. Right in the distance, as far as you can see, is the summit of this climb. But now the weather is beautiful here and the pursuit is hot as Bogart now sets the pace. He is a sensation this year. He has been Rabobank's secret weapon for a great Tour performance. He wants a podium place in Paris, and ever since the prologue, he has been in the frame. 3 kilometers to go now for Pantani. Second yesterday, he's now racing for the win.
Incredible performance there. He gets out of the saddle. Every time he slows down, he comes out of the saddle to accelerate, to keep the pace high. That is what a pure climber is all about. He's not able to ride at a constant pace like Jan Ullrich is doing here. He has to accelerate. Every time he goes below a certain speed, he'll get out of the saddle and lift it once more.
I'll tell you what, Ulrich is finding all of the pressure of being the leader of the Tour. Yesterday he was marked, today he's being marked, nobody is helping him. He had an atrocious slice of bad luck at the start of this climb, yet he got back. Obviously he hadn't recovered from the chase because Pantani went. The nice thing was that Pantani didn't attack when he was off the back with that puncture. Look at the crowds.
Unbelievable crowds out here on the slopes of the Plateau de Bay. And you know, Bobby Julich there has a very good teammate alongside him. That's Christophe Renero. He's another rider from Cofidis. Cofidis packing a lot of riders into the top 10 this afternoon, but nobody could rival Marco Pantani. Wearing 21, he finished third in the Tour de France last year, and he really has come to this Tour de France with no pressure on his shoulders at all. He won the Tour of Italy, Phil, and he said, I'm coming to the Tour, I just want to win stages, and I think the way he's going now, he's going to walk away with this one.
Well, this will be yet another win for him. He usually wins in twos, and he missed out yesterday, but he's still got the Alps to come, of course, as we make our way up to the summit. The local people here say these are the finest views you'll get anywhere in the Pyrenees. And I don't think we can disagree with them today. You can see for miles, and we're getting up to the dizzy height now of 1,747 meters, and Ulrich is still having to answer every attack because no one is helping him.
Incredible change in the weather conditions after yesterday when we saw the rain coming down, the clouds over the top of these mountains. Today it's a perfect condition for racing. Ulrich isn't panicking at the moment, he's just riding at tempo. He doesn't want to lose too much time, but Marco Pantani just has 1,000 meters left.
Well, they can face to a couple of days of undulations once they head over towards the Alps, so once they get this climb behind them. But Pantani is going to turn his back on the Pyrenees with a victory for sure now. Inside the last 500 or 600 meters to go, and Marco Pantani knows now that he is going to win this stage of the Tour de France. And this is the chase group there under the 1 kilometre to go banner now, but Pantani is sprinting for the victory. It's been a great couple of days in the Pyrenees. Second yesterday, a win today. He's won at Alpe d'Huez twice, Gouzet-Neige, he's won at Morzine, now he's won at the Plateau de Bay. And that is a great victory for Pantani, as the clock will now show him moving up the overall classification.
Well, there's Bobby Julich sitting in second position there, Phil, and I do feel that he should have attacked Jan Ullrich today, because Ullrich was all alone on the slopes of this climb, and I feel in a little bit of difficulty.
Ulrich really has been a lonely rider this last couple of days of the Tour de France. There's one or two strong men coming through here now. The Cofidis team have had a wonderful day out. Roland Meyer is still ahead of this group, looks set now to take second place. They've got two riders here in the group, so they are going to walk the team race in this Tour.
And Escartine in the green jersey there, riding himself as well high into the overall standings. And Roland Meyer, Phil, has held on to second place. That was a magnificent ride by him.
Meyer's been absolutely brilliant today, despite that fall on the descent of the Col de la Cour. He's now getting up and finishing in second place at the top of the plateau. And it looks as though Bogart's trying to lead out, but he's going to be beaten by Bobby Julich, who's riding an inspired Tour this year. So third place over the line for Bobby Julich, and the time gaps are opening. Il Pirato continues his climb up the overall classification. But what about Bobby Julich? Third place today, and this rider really is having a great Tour de France. And straight after the finish, Paul Sherwin was with him.
Bobby, incredible ride there to stay up alongside Jan Ullrich.
Yeah, you know, I felt very good today, but I had a guy up the road, so there was no way I could attack. I wanted to play it safe in the Pyrenees. You know, and we'll just have to wait and see in the Alps, you know.
You said before the Tour de France you were a little worried about the Pyrenees and felt that the Alpine climbs would be better for you.
Well, if the Alpine climbs are better for me, then I'm excited, because the Pyrenees went pretty damn good.
They certainly were, and Marco Pantani will think that as well, because he's had a first and a second place in the mountains. And Bobby Julich has shown himself now to be a real challenger in this year's Tour de France. That's the situation. Julich now 1:11 behind Ullrich. Jalabert is third, equal with Marco Pantani. Michael Bogart lies in fifth place. But as the Tour continues, we're heading east now, the southeast corner, down towards La Cap d'Agde. The bad news continues.
In the past 24 hours, the Tour de France has been sent reeling by more drugs allegations. And this morning, the riders left in the race themselves went on strike. One is now asking the question, will the Tour de France see Paris in 10 days' time? This is the story so far. The revelation started during yesterday's rest day when police swooped on the hotel of the TVM riders and detained team manager Kees Priem, a mechanic, and team doctor Andrei Mikhailov. Drugs are reported since to have been found during the search of the team's hotel. Oops. Meanwhile, in Lyon, the headquarters city of the Festina team, all 9 riders excluded from this race last Saturday were also detained to answer allegations made by the team's management, who are in custody in northern France. The Festina riders have now all been released after a tough round of questioning, but not before Laurent Brochard, the world champion, Christophe Moreau and the Swiss rider Armin Meyer all confessed to using drugs while racing. A programme on French television last night showing journalists looking into the waste bins at team hotels for syringes and signs of illegal drugs was, for the remaining riders in the race, the last straw. And this morning, the riders themselves said enough is enough, and led by the top Frenchman, Laurent Jalabert, they went on strike as the race official start approached.
Well, we're sitting on the road at the start. We're not quite sure what's happening or what the teams are hoping to achieve by sitting at the start, but hopefully we'll find out soon and something will be done, either get underway or, I don't know.
Laurent Jalabert said, the riders are disgusted by everything that has gone on. We will not be treated like cattle. Today, we will not take to our bikes. And for an hour this morning, that looked to be the case. But after meetings with the Tour organisation, the field started to move slowly. Jalabert, Marco Pantani and Luc Leblanc were initially said to have withdrawn with their teams. But after a further hour of slow pedalling, the official start was given and all of the riders were in the peloton. The Tour was back on, for now, but further meetings tonight are expected.
Well, 2 hours the strike took, but these 3 riders that are about to be caught and swept up have averaged 49 kilometres an hour for something like 3 hours out front. But Nicolas and Laurent Jalabert, Bart Voskamp, are now back in the fold. They were hunting down Laurent Jalabert, of course, because he was only
3 minutes off the yellow jersey. But now it's anybody's guess, and it looks to me as though we've got Jackie Durand trying to get the stage again.
1,000 metres left for Jackie Durand, and he's been away for 23 kilometres, and right behind him the main field is being pulled along by all the teams of the sprinters. And you know what, Phil, it's a very difficult last 500 metres, and look at that long line of the main field boring down upon him.
Well, Jackie's taken full advantage of a breakaway in this tailwind. He's the last survivor of it. He can almost see the finish, but he's now changed direction and the wind is beginning to hurt. And to make matters worse, he's going slightly uphill. He can almost reach out and touch the finishing line here, but the field are coming so quickly, and the sprinters are on cue here as they try to drive for the line now. This is going to be almost capture in sight of the finish here for Jackie Durand. The rider's looking over the shoulder here. Zabel is in there too, as he tries to come through in that green jersey, but watch out, to behind Jan Zarada is Tom Steels, and Steels is looking good. Steels has had one win already. This is going to be a very tight finish indeed now, but Steels is perfectly poised because Zarada has totally misjudged it, or indeed has he let his teammate out. He's pushed Zabel way off his line there, and now Tom Steels is heading for win number 2. The first one came in Phoenix Park in Dublin. Nobody's going to get on terms. Tom Steels gets his second stage win, but you have to feel very sorry indeed there for Jackie Durand. He came so close to winning today, but the champion of Belgium now has 2 stage wins, one in Dublin, one in Cap d'Agde, and that is a great result for him, of course. The whole field coming in together and virtually no one behind the race today. This is how you can see the pure sprinter work it out. I think in this case we'll say Zarada was leading out his teammate, but you see he slowed and moved off his line, and that forced Zabel way off his line, and that was a little bit unfair, I think, there, but nonetheless he left Tom Steels out in front, and for Tom Steels, and it's Francois Simon who's coming up there in second place, but for Tom Steels it's a gold again for him at Cap d'Agde.
Yeah, that wouldn't make it if...
So Steels the victor, but no change at all overall. 1 minute 11 seconds, still the deficit for Bobby Julich, and Jalabert still there in third place as we face up to stage 13. With any thought that the Tour de France might be cancelled, well, they were quickly dispelled last night by Jean-Marie Leblanc, the Director General, who said it was never a consideration. Even so, this morning's papers here are full of the news of the sensational happenings yesterday. Well, now we can go directly to Gary Imlach, who can update us on the first meeting of today, and that's between the riders and the Vice President of the UCI.
Like visiting heads of state, the tribal representatives of world cycling gathered for their summit at a hotel about 5 miles from the stage start. A rider from each team, Laurent Jalabert, the leader of yesterday's protest, most senior among them, and a handful of the Tour's leading team managers. The man they were there to see was Daniel Barle, the French vice president of World Cycling's governing body, the UCI. As 10 and then 11 o'clock came and went, the chances of the race starting on time at 12:15 looked to be shrinking. But with just under an hour to go before the off, Barle emerged to announce peace, or at least what passes for it at this year's Tour.
Bien entendu, tout le monde s'exprime très clairement. Il n'y a pas de raison que le Tour ne continue pas. Le Tour n'est pas synonyme de dopage. Dans ce Tour, on a beaucoup trop parlé de dopage, alors que le problème du dopage n'est pas que le problème du cyclisme. Mais en termes de politique de prévention, nous sommes convenus de nous retrouver avec les représentants des coureurs, les représentants des groupes, les médecins, dès la fin de la saison.
Given that Barle had finished with an optimistic appeal for the riders to be left in peace, Diana Rees's concise summary of the morning's proceedings was no surprise.
Diana, are the riders pleased with the outcome of the meeting?
I'm sure.
Laurent Jalabert too wasted no time declaring himself satisfied, and as he bummed a lift from his Once team's Spanish rivals Benesto, today's off-the-bike episode of cycling's favourite summer soap was ostensibly over.
Well, for all the talk of tighter doping controls and a shared commitment to cleaning up the sport, little of actual substance came out of this morning's meeting. The real purpose of the exercise, I think, was for the UCI to show publicly that they value the riders' opinions and to give them a forum in which to express them. The hope being that they won't feel the need to resort to yesterday's tactics between here and Paris.
Well, let's hope you're right, Gary, but it is stage 13 today, 196 kilometres from Frontignan, going to Carpentras. We turn north now. Next stop, of course, will be the Alps. They're still a couple of days away. 147 riders left in the field. There's the man in the hot seat, Jan Ullrich. He's got his yellow jersey back after having briefly held it in the time trial. And the man in green, looking very solid, Eric Zabel now for a third victory in this competition. Look at his lead here over Tom Steels and Jan Zrada. It'll take some bringing back now, Paul.
It will, but you could see the sequels there on him from the crash he was involved in yesterday, but still he managed to get a place in the sprint at the end. But today is a very difficult day with the Col de Meurs at the end, and that's where I feel the decisive break will happen. Once again, sunny, and look again, high temperatures, 36 degrees Celsius in the latter part of the afternoon, and the wind, 50 kilometres an hour from the northwest, will play havoc in the latter part of the stage.
Well, the majority of the route is flat, but once we swing north towards Carpentras, away from the sea, then it gets a little bit lumpy around about the area of the Col de Meurs. And the breakaway has been on. In fact, there's been breakaways all day today, but this one, as we start the climb of the Col de Meurs, looks as though it might have a chance.
In there, Marty Jemison from the US Postal Service. Just swinging off the front there was Stefan Hurler, the former champion of France. But two riders from Mapei in there. On the front is Nardello, and in fifth position, the champion of Italy, Andrea Taffi. Now, he's a man looking for the victory this afternoon.
Well, this is Luc Leblanc here, who's also looking to try and get in contact. He's come away from the peloton, which was timed a few minutes ago at 3 3/4 minutes. Taffi's gone over the top there with Nardello. And the remnants of the breakaway, there's still 7 of them though, and Leblanc will be next. He's about 30 seconds ahead of the peloton.
I don't think anyone would have expected an attack to come on this climb, because the heads of state of the Tour de France taking a back seat this afternoon, waiting for the big mountains on the horizon, the Alps. But Luc Leblanc has decided this is a good time to go out and open up an attack, and that's exactly what he's done. And he has around about 30 seconds over the main field, which is being led by Team Telecom.
Well, he's a little bit of a loner, is Luc Leblanc. He always makes his own moves. Here's Bjorn Rees now setting the tempo as he brings the field over the main climb of the day, and Jan Ullrich tucked in not too far behind. The time gap, 3 minutes 43 seconds. Back up with the leaders now, and Taffi very anxious to get that race on the go at the front.
A lot of work at the front being done by Team Telecom, but they're getting help now from Cofidis, and also getting some help from the riders from Mapei.
Well, Leblanc, he really is bashing his head against the wall here, Paul. In fact, I think he's just realised it because he sat up. He's going to wait for them to roll in. He never got much more than half a minute, and I think he's going to hang on now. He told by the helicopter that gave the secret away as to where the peloton was, I think. There he is. He's been picked up by the Telecom primarily. Let's get back up to the leaders here, because this is Taffi, and going down on the inside, Vincente Garcia Acosta.
I think he was a little bit upset by the race profile, because if you look at it in the race Bible, it looks as if it descended all the way down to the finish line. In fact, there's a good portion of flat here before we get into the town of Carpentras, and the winner this afternoon, Phil, certainly is going to come from one of these 6 riders. And it could be a good chance for Marty Jemison, because when it comes down to a sprint at the end, he knows exactly where to place himself.
There's Jemison now coming to the back of the line of the 6 here. The blonde rider in front of him, by the way, is Koos Meurenhout. He comes from the Rabobank team. It's a very nice little working group. There's Stefan Erlo is lying 20th overall, 7 minutes 56 seconds back, and with a lead of 3:22 or 3:21, then he's pulling back quite a big chunk of his deficit today.
The group of riders just behind, in fact trapped in between this leading group of 6 and the main field, are the remnants of that early breakaway, which was 12 riders, and it's split on the Col de Meurs, leaving these 6 riders to go ahead. But every one of these men in the group, Phil, very insistent on going to the front, keeping the pace as high as possible. With 4 kilometres remaining, they must certainly now be thinking about launching a late attack.
And the peloton really should be thinking about pulling them all back here, because Stefan Erlo, he's in the front group, and he's going to make a big ascension of the overall classification tonight. But they're not going to get them back, Paul, as we're coming up towards the finish now, and the cat and mouse is starting. The gap is still fairly big here, and attacked now by Nardello through on the inside.
Good move. Taffi's in second place. He'll close it down as Nardello goes round the corner. In fact, it looks to me as if he didn't take the corner properly there, and he lost all his impetus, and it's come back together. So that was a waste of effort for him.
Well, he misread the bend completely. It went very narrow, that's for sure. And he sat up, but he may not get a second shot at that now. But Nardello sat up, and in fact it's Acosta who's gone through. And now nobody willing to race again, and you can see how narrow the roads are here in Carpentras.
Marty Jemison just shaking his thighs there, just trying to get a little bit more life into them, because the sprint is going to be one of survival. It's a very difficult day out here, very hot indeed, and it may well be the last man to sprint, the last man to wind it up is the one who's going to survive. On the front, Acosta in second place, Koos Meurenhout. In fact, Acosta moving back now to the back of the line and moving to the front, Stefan Hurlo of France.
Well, this breakaway certainly was for the stage win and not for the big gains, because they're losing big chunks of their advantage now as the field will continue to race in at high speed. They'll have chopped a minute off in the last kilometre, I would think. But now they're thinking of the stage win. Stefan Hurlo is the rider on the front. He had the most to gain on the GC, but he's not going to get a great deal out of it right now. And clearly Taffy is waiting for somebody to start the ball rolling. Jemison is sitting at the back. I would have thought in an ideal position to jump, and he hasn't done so.
He's waiting till the very last minute, and Taffy, I think, also must be thinking about that sprint in Montauban where he let it out, and at the last minute Jackie Durand came over him. He's in an ideal position right on his teammate's wheels, so certainly Nardello is going to lead the sprint out for Andrea Taffy, the champion of Italy this afternoon.
And it's Koos Meurenhout in second place as well, behind Hurlo. And then comes Nardello. They're all looking over the shoulder, waiting for somebody else to start the ball rolling. They're making Hurlo take the race right up to the line here, but they're going to start coming now. And in fact, a piece of paper has flown onto the face of Stefan Hurlo, and there's nothing he can do about it now. He's got rid of it as he now makes the run for the line. But did that affect his sprint? I wonder, because Nardello has come over the top here with such a turn of speed, and that despite the attack he made at 1,500 metres to go. And it looks like this could be a great victory for Daniel Nardello. Acosta is coming very quickly, and Hurlo, as he left it too late, because the line is just about on them. Acosta on the right, and it's ever so close, but Nardello believes he's got it. It was a very, very close run thing there by Garcia. Acosta on the right. Just watch the wheels now as they hit the finishing line, because it looked as though the Spanish rider was nearly up at this time. I would say about the width of the racing tyre of Nardello, and there it is confirmed. So the Italian gets the victory, and Taffy from this photograph will finish third. And on the far side, Marty Jemison comes home in fifth place, and here's Paul Sherwin with him now.
Well, Marty, a tough day in the saddle there, and you must have had thoughts over the last few kilometres of a chance of winning a stage.
I did, I didn't give up any chance, looking around and seeing the big names. It wasn't intimidating at all. I felt like it was right in there. When we first split up and it went down from 12 to the 6 of us there, I'd gone pretty deep and I was worried, but I recovered pretty well before the next climb. On the climb, I thought, well, they might give it some stick, but I thought I was just as strong as any of them. They attacked on the hill, covered those pretty well, and then all the way in, I thought, there may be a better sprinter here, but they're not going to outdo me with the psychology. I thought I gave it everything I had.
It split up several times. It looked as if there was a big work being done between Nardello and Taffy. They kept controlling it, but you were always there.
Yeah, I thought they were playing a little bit. I thought maybe they would have played it a little bit more. They were covering Stefan Hurlo a little bit. I played that a bit too. I thought that, Taffy and Stefan Hurlo were the strongest guys there, and I felt they'll watch each other the closest. But I was really looking for Nardello to escape, but I think he was tired. We're on the same level. As it comes down, I think we were all pretty much on the same level coming into the sprint.
The last 500 meters there, you were in 6th place, an ideal spot to be. You could see everybody else, but maybe the legs just weren't quite strong enough?
No, I think the legs were good. And I think where I was at was really good. I was confident, I was really comfortable, looking for the right wheel. I think I mentioned just a minute ago that, there was I bumped bikes with somebody else twice in the sprint. I think if that didn't happen, I would have had at least another bike length. That's how much power I had. Look at the film, put one more bike length on it, and that's how strong I am.
It's tough to get so close to a stage victory and just miss out.
Yeah, but I had a good day. I like riding.
Just actually one final question about Bobby Julich in this Tour de France. Are you surprised how well this American's riding?
The Americans have been stronger and stronger. There's more of us. We give each other, a little bit of confidence, a little bit of pep talk. I support everything Bobby's doing. I think it's the greatest thing for, American cycling to have another person come along and possibly win the Tour de France. He can do it.
Is it motivation for you to see any of the other Americans riding well? George Hincapie rode well in the first week. Now it's Bobby Julich.
I've had motivation for the last couple of months now. Helping George win the U.S. US Pro Championships, and then helping Lance win Luxembourg and the stage race in Germany. Myself placing top 10 in both those and helping Lance win those. I'm having a lot of fun racing. I've been waiting for a long time to have a ride like this in the Tour. I know I'm strong, but I often do work for others, but today was my day.
It certainly was, and a great finish there for Marty Jemison and Eric Zabel bringing the rest home here. And just on 2 minutes 50 odd seconds down on the day, so there'll be no change overall at all. Zabel will in fact increase his lead in his green jersey competition. But the win going to Daniel Nardello of the MAPE team. That's their full stage win of this tour so far, and he beats the Spanish rider Garcia Acosta. Overall, no change. Julik, Jalabert, Pantani, Bogert and Luc Leblanc, who had a little dig today, but he's still sixth, 4 minutes 16 seconds back. Well, there's the beauty of the area we are in as we prepare now to head up towards the Alps. You can see them in the distance there. And this will be a reasonably tough day. 186.5 kilometres, still 147 riders left as we now head north towards the Alps.
And if anybody is going to challenge Jan Ullrich as this race now passes to the Alps, then it's got to be the American Bobby Julich. He's riding his second tour and something of a mystery to us all. So let's meet him.
Hello, my name is Bobby Julich. I'm 26 years old. I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas. I am 6 foot. Right now on the Tour de France, I'm about 67 kilograms. My home in the United States is Glenwood Springs, Colorado. While in Europe, I live in Nice, France. I am engaged with a girl. Let me do that again, huh? Yeah. I am currently engaged to be married to my longtime fiancée, Angela Morgan. I started cycling in 1984. I turned professional in 1993. I joined Team Cofidis in 1997. Before I came to the Tour de France, I imagined it as just being a Super Bowl every day for 21 days. I respect Jan Ullrich very, very much, but no, I'm not scared of him. I've really seen no weakness in Jan Ullrich up until now, but the Alps are very, very difficult, and anything can happen. I'm surprised to be in this situation, but to be honest, I've always believed in my abilities, and I one day knew that I would be in this situation. So it is a surprise to happen so soon, but I knew it would happen someday.
I think Bobby Julich beginning to enjoy this year's Tour de France, and well he might. He's riding superbly, and so is his team. In fact, this is Laurent Debian. Remember Laurent? He held the lead for a couple of days in the first week of the Tour. He's dropped back a little bit now to 86th, but he's up in the action again, Paul. We've got a break of 6 on.
Yeah, but difficult conditions once again, Phil. Sun out, 20 kilometres per hour southwesterly wind, and again high temperatures, 33 degrees Celsius, so the heat certainly is on in the Tour de France.
I couldn't agree more. It's very oppressive, the weather conditions at the moment, but the breakaway went clear after only 65 kilometres today, and in this breakaway, again, a former yellow jersey Stuart O'Grady, a former yellow jersey in Laurent Debian, a stage winner in Leon Van Bon, and Calcaterra, Rodriguez and Peter Meinhardt is in there as well.
I would think most of the riders in the main field will be quite happy with this breakaway going clear as we're on the slopes now of the Col de Roussay, because for all of the challenges of the Tour de France, the important thing is the Alps tomorrow, and Debian thinks he can get a stage victory because he's gone clear on the run-in.
Well, over the top of the Col, this breakaway had a lead of almost 9 minutes. Now they're trying to scramble for the victory here in the streets of Grenoble. Rodriguez is taking on Laurent Debian, but they're only just ahead of the group. In fact, the man has been doing an awful lot of chasing down in Stuart O'Grady. He might have chased down just once too often, Paul, because these two have got a march.
They certainly have. Orlando Rodriguez, a very good sprinter. He's brought across to the Banesto team to win stages. He won a stage race last year. He's a very good rider from Portugal, and now he's got himself in the ideal situation. Laurent Debian pushing it at the front, trying to stay clear because he knows for him this is a last-ditch effort.
Well, there's nobody going to alter the overall classification tonight in this breakaway. Tomorrow, though, the Alps may have a different story to tell us. But right now, those two riders have gone clear as they came into the long straights here in Grenoble, racing right down to the centre of the town. We don't often come here now to Grenoble, and the crowd are waiting for the riders to come in. But it's an opportunist move, and they're flat out, and Rodriguez looks 100% committed.
I'm surprised Rodriguez went with this move because he's got a very good sprint himself when it comes down to the finish of a race, and the work behind under the 2 kilometres to go banner being done by Stuart O'Grady, obviously wanting to pull it all back together. And for Debian, as soon as it slows down, he goes right to the front to keep the pace high. These two riders both working well together.
Well, it must seem an eternity down the street here, and slowly but surely those riders are clawing their way back. So very soon we're going to have 6 men, and in fact Debian is saying, look, they're coming up, come and do something. But I really don't think Orlando Rodriguez can do anything about this now. He's got nothing left.
Very close. It looks to me as if Calcaterra is a man now coming to the front, keeping the pressure on, trying to pull it all back together. These riders have been away for so long now, they just don't want to let the break go clear. There's Van Bon, the winner of the stage, into Poe. He too is a very smart sprinter when it comes down to the end of a stage like this, and they will all have been waiting for that banner across the line, Phil. The red kite showing them just 1 kilometre to go, 1,000 metres.
Well, it's been touch and go for them all, but Calcaterra is trying to finish it off, and Leon Van Bon is prepared to help him, a silver medalist, or bronze medalist rather, in the World Championships. Leon Van Bon, a double stage winner in the old Tour du Pont in the United States, but he's come through as a great rider now in the Tour, and this is his 5th time in the Tour de France. 1 stage win already, and they're all together now. Watch out for the trackie. Stuart O'Grady goes to an impossible gap. The typical track move through on the inside and gets onto the back wheel of Debian.
He's right there, but also a good trackman, Van Bon, in 3rd position. He was 2nd in the points race at the Olympic Games in 1992 Barcelona. So these 2 riders know just exactly how to handle this kind of sprint. A slow start to the sprint, very explosive. O'Grady up into 2nd place, but look at Van Bon right on his wheel.
So we've only got 1 stage winner this year in the Tour de France here. We've got 2 previous yellow jersey wearers, and the rest just hoping for the slice of the glory. Debian, who was the yellow jersey, is being left on the front to be leading out the sprint here for Northern France. But Calcaterra is a dangerous man, and he's digging very deep there. He's holding Stuart O'Grady on his inside. O'Grady's taken the back wheel of Calcaterra now. This might be a good move for O'Grady. Van Bon has pulled out of it a little bit. He seems to not have the legs here, and right on the line. I think the old track push there may have given it to Stuart O'Grady. Let's have a look from the top here. Calcaterra did appear to have this, holding the barriers on his left, but then came O'Grady, and despite a slight move off the line there by Calcaterra, he got it by the width of his tyre. Well, I'm just wondering if the judges might not like the action of Calcaterra there, Paul.
Well, he did move off his line. He came halfway across the road, but you know, the judges, in fact, have just decided to relegate him back into 6th place.
All right, well, the win means a lot to Stuart O'Grady. He's with Paul Sherwin.
Yeah, mate, there was so much going through my head in the last 20k. I was just like, I can't ride all this way and stuff it up in the last kilometre, because I know I won't sleep tonight. And the last few k, when a couple of break took off in the last couple of k, I was getting pretty worried, but just played cards, and
it seemed like you were doing an awful lot of work, because every time somebody attacked, it seemed to be you who was chasing them down.
I just didn't want to see someone right off in front of the K to go and flick me by 3 seconds, you know. That'd really annoy me. So, you know, I was maybe doing a little bit much work, but there was a couple of other guys in there that wanted it to come down to a bunch sprint as well, and it's worked out perfect.
Well, here comes the bunch now. They've lost a bit more time today, and they're trying to manoeuvre the finish, indeed, in the favour of Eric Zabel. He seems to have a nice little habit of cleaning up the bunch, an awful long way back on the eve of the Alps. But here comes Zabel, gritting his teeth, and a few more green jersey points are going in the bag as Robbie McEwen just finishes on his back wheel. 10 minutes back. Stuart O'Grady so becomes the 3rd Australian ever to win a stage of the Tour de France, behind Phil Anderson and Neil Stevens. This has been a dream tour for him, the yellow jersey, and now a stage win. All smiles for Stuart. He's having a great season too, with victory in the British Pro Tour as well. On to Les Deux Alpes, a new finishing venue now for the Tour de France, and the stage awaits the enactment of this race in the Alps. And the riders heading out on stage 15. The mountains are there for us all to see, and it's 189 kilometres to the high spot of the day at Les Deux Alpes, which, by the way, is the parallel valley to Alpe d'Huez. Jan Ullrich, the lead of the Tour, by 1 minute and 11 seconds. Laurent Jalabert still equal with Marco Pantani, 3 minutes 1 second. Then comes Bogart and Luc Leblanc. But I'll tell you what, there'll be changes today. It's only a matter of knowing which way they are changing. Well, this is the finishing line of Les Deux Alpes, and the clouds are sweeping across the top of the mountains today, and in fact it is cold and chilly. It hasn't affected the crowd at all, because they've come to what is the last mountaintop finish of this year's Tour de France, and as Italy is not very far away from here, you can imagine who they want to see first to the top today.
Mirko Pantani.
Pantani.
Marco Pantani.
Marco Pantani.
Marco Pantani.
Pantani.
Pantani. Aussi, Pantani.
Well, the little imp has all the qualifications for today's stage, Paul, with the Col de Croix de Fer, the Col de Telegraph, Col de Galibier, and then the tough climb up to Les Deux Alpes.
All he can hope is that there's no breakaways go on the early parts of this stage this afternoon, and a man sitting at the rear of the main field for the moment in the yellow jersey, Jan Ullrich, but he'll be challenged certainly today, Phil, by Bobby Julich.
I'll tell you what, I don't think he expected Pantani to become such a challenger that he has become since this race left Dublin. He was so far behind after the prologue, it seemed he was not interested. But 3 minutes off the lead, and it's very possible now he could snatch the yellow jersey away from Jan Ullrich.
Especially in these conditions, Phil. Yeah. Rain and very low temperatures, 12 degrees Celsius, and you can see already on the first climb of the day, a lot of riders being left behind. This is the Col de la Croix de Fer.
And now, as we move on towards the Col de Galibier, conditions haven't changed at all here. Adolfo Massi has picked up both climbs of the Col de Croix de Fer and the Col de Telegraph. But conditions here on the Galibier are quite atrocious now. We're going up to the highest point of this year's Tour de France, and Pantani isn't going to wait. We're a long way from the top and a long way from the finish here, and nobody's reacted.
I make it 11 kilometres to go to the summit here. Phil, and Pantani has not waited. In fact, he's looking over his shoulder to see if there's any reaction behind, and it's coming from Luc Leblanc. Now, this man crashed on the first climb of the day, the Col de Croix de Fer. It didn't seem to affect him at all, and now he's got help, and that's what he wants, because there's an awful long way to go to the finish from the top of the Col de la Galibier, but it looks as if Luc Leblanc is in serious difficulty.
Well, he's tried to go across to Pantani, but I don't think he's going to even get onto him here, because the weather is bad, and I think Luc Leblanc is thinking better of the attack here. Certainly no reaction at all from Ullrich, content to set the tempo, because remember, this attack has gone very early. Once we go down off the Galibier, we run through the valley before we climb up to the finish at Les Deux Alpes, and this has caused all sorts of consternation now.
Christophe Renero is up the road as well. He's put a great performance in this afternoon. He's trying to set the road alight for the Cofidis team. He's trying to set something up for Bobby Julich, because today is the day in the Alps that Bobby Julich said he could challenge Jan Ullrich. He's always favoured the Alps over the Pyrenees, and certainly that's why Team Cofidis have gone out. But Marco Pantani this afternoon has gone out to do something very special. But from the top of the Galibier, Phil, there's 45 kilometres to go to the finish. That's an awful long way to go.
It certainly is. Jean-Céline Robin sitting at the back of this league group here for the US Postal and riding a good solid race at the moment. Cofidis again have planted a lot of good riders in this front group, including Bobby Julich and Christophe Renero. And I'll tell you what, Renero rode his first Tour de France last year and he only finished 115th. He's been a totally different rider this year so far. This group thinning down drastically. Leonardo Pipoli again flying the flag for Seiko at the back of the group. This is Baranowski, I think.
Baranowski at the front for US Postal Service. US Postal having a great day in the mountains as well. They too will be moving up in the overall team standings. Sitting in second place there, Bobby Julich, I think, waiting for the moment when he's going to launch an attack, and obviously using a lot of common sense and tactics there. Ullrich is leaving the others there to do the work, because he realises they too are under pressure from Pantani.
Well, we're looking at the back here of Renero, but further up the road is Marco Pantani. And he has gone, no, sorry, there's Renero is leading on the slopes. This is Pantani coming up to him here. And Pantani has closed this gap quite sensationally. Renero was third over the Croix de Fer. He was second over the Col de Telegraph. And now he's going to have to hang on to the Flying Pirate if he gets up to him, and I think he will.
What a move by Pantani there. He's going to pick up Christophe Renero, who was away at the bottom of this climb now, and I'm sure he will go straight by him. But there's an awful long way to go to the finish, and he's not too happy about the encouragement from the spectators. This is a very dangerous pastime. These spectators try and run alongside their favourites, and many riders in the past, Phil, have actually been knocked off by spectators doing this, which is why I think such a reaction coming from Pantani.
Well, Jose Maria Jimenez from Benesto, he's a good climber, but he's found his hands full here now, because Pantani has got to the front. Renero is doing well to grit his teeth. We're coming up towards the summit, but there's still a little way to go on the Galibier yet. We're losing the actual grass line and getting the barren side of this mountain. And all of a sudden, the rest are being left to make the pace. Julich also on the front now of the chase group. This is a serious move today by Marco Pantani. Remember, just over 3 minutes behind overall at the start of this stage. He's no longer looking for stage wins, Paul.
He certainly isn't. He's trying to blow the Tour de France apart this afternoon. Now, there is one of the team soigneurs, I think, from the Mercatoni squad. Now, that is probably an illegal move there, passing up a bottle to Pantani and also passing up a racing cape. Now, this is a very difficult manoeuvre there, trying to put this on a descent at 50 or 60 kilometers an hour. And the picture breakup is because we're not using helicopters this afternoon. We're actually using an aeroplane above the race because the cloud cover is so low.
And the aeroplane, by the way, is having to fly at 27,000 feet to bring us these pictures because of the mountains all around. And in fact, what you said has come to fruition, Paul. He stopped to put the cape on, and I think somebody slipped through on the inside of him. And so he's no longer first on the road, but I don't think it's too serious.
Well, those two riders who came through were Renero, and in fact, the other rider from Banesto was Jimenez. So they two have now made a three-man group at the front. Now, that's a very intelligent thing to do by Pantani there, because if he tried to change, he may well have come off, and in fact it looks as if somebody's gone off the road there.
Well, somebody's gone behind that caravan. It looks as though it might be Bobby Julich in the corner there. It is. Julich's going straight on. He was trying to put his cape on as well.
Well, he lost it going around the corner there, obviously deciding to go straight on instead of trying to turn around there, and he's going to be quite scared on the descent now. He's obviously used that opportunity to stop and put his cape on. He's trying to wrap it up now. All of these riders trying to keep as warm as possible because it's very difficult. Phil, there's a problem here with the yellow jersey.
Well, the yellow jersey, I think, has got a flat tyre, and it's another puncture here. We're not very far away from the climb of Les Deux Alpes either. And the weather conditions have closed in, and once again Jan Ullrich is finding the Tour de France is not his friend.
Well, on the slope of the Deux Alpes already Marco Pantani has started to climb up towards the finish, but that was a very slow wheel change for Jan Ullrich there, picking his way through the cars, and you can see there this town we're coming into now is the start of the climb, Les Deux Alpes. So Jan Ullrich once again in difficulty at the bottom of a mountain top finish.
Well, we are going to struggle to bring you the pictures now, but that is the time gap, I presume, back to the Jan Ullrich group, and that is 4 minutes, which puts Pantani in the yellow jersey now, and already Ullrich is out of it. What an amazing tour this is turning out to be, and we're still being run off at record speed.
And the big problem for Ullrich this afternoon is he does not have any teammates with him. They've all been left behind on the slopes of the Gaillarde, and Marco Pantani is riding a time trial here to what for him I think is going to be a second victory, because he's not showing any signs of being affected by the cold weather. He hasn't got a raincoat on now. He's obviously thrown that away, and he's going to ride up this mountain as fast as he can.
Well, we've been treated to this man in the Pyrenees. Now, what are they going to do about him here in the Alps? But at least there's some reaction coming. Bobby Julich trying to get away from the front of the group now and put some time into Ullrich as well.
Well, he should have gone when Pantani went, but now he's trying to save as much as he can. He's gone away at the bottom of the Deux Alpes. The reaction behind was coming from Michael Bogard, but the drama further back, Phil, is Jan Ullrich cannot get into a rhythm, and in fact he's losing time on the Bobby Julich group, and still he has nobody to help him.
It appeared initially he was coming back, but he looks to me as though he's not just cracked physically, he's cracked mentally here. And the way he's dropped back now, he's a very lonely rider indeed. Nobody around to help him, and his Tour de France could be running away from him. And I never thought we'd say that this year.
Well, that's the difference between being at the front of the race and being at the back. Marco Pantani won't be feeling the cold at the moment. All he's thinking about is concentrating on keeping his pace high, getting to the top of this mountain as quickly as possible. He's had success in the Alps before. In fact, on the other side of the valley to where we are now at Alpe d'Huez, where he won on 2 occasions, today he's looking to put another alpine stage on his credits.
Well, he's magnificent when he's in full flight, but in weather conditions like this, we are looking now at time gaps which might take us back into the mid-50s.
These conditions, Phil, are unbelievable. That was Udo Bolt. In fact, he has caught up with Jan Ullrich, and he's trying to pace him, but it looks as if the German has completely cracked. I think, as you said, his mind has gone. He's not on the job anymore. He's just trying to survive. He's going to try and take this raincoat off, throw that away to the crowd. But for him, he really has to concentrate to keep himself in the Tour de France this afternoon.
Well, he's very, very unhappy, that's for sure now. He's a little bit confused as well, is young Jan Ullrich. The Tour de France, he obviously didn't have the right depth of his form. We were wondering if he was overweight. He certainly isn't that, but I'm wondering too if his preparation hasn't been quite right this year. And Pantani is now going to find out the answer to that, because he is putting home the attack here. He is gaining minutes over the rest of the race. Here's Bogart now, but still staying in the frame.
Well, there's Bobby Julich as well, setting the pace, trying to pull back a little bit of time on Marco Pantani, but it's slipping away. 4 minutes and 4 seconds, 41 seconds behind him is Jan Ullrich. So Ullrich is slipping away, and Bobby Julich could be riding himself into the yellow jersey.
And there is now, Rees has now picked up Jan Ullrich, so it's looking as though he might get a little bit of help at hand here. Van der Voer who has had a good race so far. He's also come into the frame for Lotto, but with every respect to the youngster, he shouldn't be riding alongside Jan Ullrich at this moment in time.
One would expect Jan Ullrich to be a lot further up the slopes than he is now, but you know, it must have been a psychological blow. The last time we had a mountaintop finish, he punctured at the bottom. Today he's done exactly the same thing, but the weather conditions are atrocious, and I think psychologically he's cracked. He's got to snap himself out of it and get back into some kind of concentration to stop losing time on Marco Pantani. But for the moment, Marco Pantani riding himself into the yellow jersey because he's almost 5 minutes ahead of Ullrich on the road.
Well, this is truly unbelievable here. Bobby Julich also staying in the thick of the action and trying to hold or at least limit his losses here to Pantani. Remember, he's fighting to hold on to second place overall in the Tour de France, and it's not no longer to Jan Ullrich, it is now to Marco Pantani. And you know, I keep thinking about Les Deux Alpes because they got the Tour away from Alpe d'Huez. The first time the Tour has been here. It's probably the most dramatic day we've seen in Tour history, in modern Tour history, and they've got weather like this.
It's quite a shame, but it really has created a dramatic race. Here's Bjarne Riis now trying to come back up to Jan Ullrich. It's as if the whole of the Telefcom team have been devastated this afternoon. The racing has actually been up the Deux Alpes before because the Tour of Italy came here several years ago. On that stage, it was Marco Pantani's teammate Bobrick who won the stage, and Pantani had a very bad day then. But today it looks as if he's turned the tables around because he's flying up this mountain and really writing his name into a legendary mountain stage of the Tour de France.
Well, as we saw earlier, this mountain is for the Italians today. The borders are not very far away as the road goes on towards Sestriere. And Marco Pantani is giving the Tifosi exactly what they wanted to see. But I don't think even they believed they were going to see more than this man win the stage, and they are. They're going to see this man pull on the maillot jaune.
Incredible. He's starting to weaken a little bit now, but after the breakaway that he's put in, that's not surprising. Bobby Julich looking very comfortable, punching away at the pedals. This man has come to the Alps. This is where he feels that his ability is much better. He doesn't like the steep, difficult climbs of the Pyrenees, but these longer ones in the Alps he feels resembles the roads of Colorado, which is why he's putting the pressure on today. He can feel there's a possibility for him to climb up above Ullrich in the overall standings, and why not a yellow jersey at the end of the day? But that, I think, Phil, is going to be taken away from him by Marco Pantani, who really is doing the ride of the day.
Just thinking there as Julich, Paul, now he's moved across to live in Philadelphia. Training on the Manny-Yonk wall is going to feel pretty easy after this year's Tour de France.
It will do. It's not exactly the slopes of the Deux Alpes. You'll have to take the Manny-Yonk wall about 15 times to put it in perspective with the Deux Alpes. At the back now of the group, you can see two Telecom riders with the man wearing #1 as last year's winner, Jan Ullrich. Bjarne Riis and Udo Bolts. They're trying to muster up a little bit of support for him, some morale boosting. They'll be talking to him, explaining to him that he needs to get back into some kind of concentration to keep his pedaling going. Over 4.5 minutes now for Marco Pantani on the chasers.
And I think that might well be to Bobby Julich, and further back even to Jan Ullrich right now. But over the years, you know, the way the journalists have tried to build this rivalry between Bjarne Riis and Jan Ullrich, of how competitive they are to one another. Now we have Riis here waiting for Jan Ullrich and trying to coax him up to the summit.
But Ullrich realises now that he has got a great teammate in the shape of Bjarne Riis. Riis is a very experienced rider, 34 years of age now. He will know exactly what is going through Ullrich's mind, and he'll be coaxing him like a master to the pupil. Now the pupil has become of age, but still he needs somebody around him just to keep him calm in situations like this.
Well, this is the one day in a Tour leader's life you hope never comes, and they always say it does one day, and it's come pretty early to Jan Ullrich. Remember, to happen to Miguel Indurain, but not until he'd won the Tour 5 times first. Bobby Julich, well, this is his second Tour de France. He wants a place on the podium in Paris. Now he's having to fight for it. Second overall this morning. He's now riding second on the road. He's holding second overall at the moment, but it's behind Marco Pantani. I bet you even Bobby Julich never thought he would be going ahead of Jan Ullrich. And Bogert is coming onto the scene, and he's flying.
A great ride by the Dutch champion. He really has come to fruition in this year's Tour de France. Wearing number 51 there, your favourite number, the number that's won the Tour de France on so many occasions. I don't think it's going to be Bogart this year, but what a ride by this young man from Holland.
Yeah, Bogart, again, a man that's always felt he could do something special in the Tour de France. There aren't many Dutchmen race for the overall classification. There's only been 1 or 2 over the years, but it looks as though Michael Bogart is going to be a man who will feature all the way to Paris. This man certainly will now. Marco Pantani still has another couple of days in the Alps as well to build more time, and if he gets a big enough time gap before that last long time trial, he may do what he did in the Tour of Italy and take this race out.
But while Jan Ullrich is trying to survive on the slopes of this mountain, Rodolfo Massi is currently lying second on the road, and he's about 1.5 minutes behind Marco Pantani. And Fernando Escartin has flown the coop as well, because he slipped away from Bobby Julich, and he's currently lying third on the road. So the Tour de France this afternoon certainly turning upside down.
And the weather is not easing at all. It has been torrential all day. It blows through at the summit and it goes off for a matter of seconds. The next cloud comes over. It is very cold as well. And I think now Jan Ullrich knows all about the other face of the Tour de France, the chasing group, because Pantani is in his element.
Pantani always getting out of the saddle, always accelerating to keep his pace as high as possible, because he realises with 2 kilometres to go that as much time as he can has to be gained today, because from here on in the terrain is not to his liking. It's much flatter and there's a big time trial to come before we get up to Paris. So today is the day he really has to put the hammer down if he wants to climb up the overall standings of the Tour de France and hope of a yellow jersey or hope of a place on the podium in Paris.
Well, he's been on the podium in Paris twice before. He's had 2 third places, but now's his chance to have a shot at the yellow jersey. He's off to a good start because the maillot jaune is waiting for him now at the finish. The road's all newly surfaced for the arrival of the Tour here, so at least the climb will feel comfortable under the wheels, but I'm not so sure about the legs.
Bobby Julich's losing an awful lot of time, over 4.5 minutes on Marco Pantani, and Jan Ullrich, Phil, looks to me as if he's almost stopped. It doesn't look as if he has any energy left in his body at all, and if it wasn't for the 2 teammates with him, I think he may well have abandoned the Tour de France on this day.
Well, look at this now. Ullrich officially is 6 minutes and 10 seconds back now as Jimenez goes down on the inside of them. He was up with Pantani at one stage and he's completely blown. Jan Ullrich is suffering badly here. 6 minutes, I can't believe it.
Another man who's been blown out of the water this afternoon as well is Laurent Jalabert. He's nowhere to be seen at the moment. He cracked on the slopes of the Col de la Galibier, and at the moment he's around about 10 or 12 minutes behind the leading group of riders. Today's stage has caused some serious time gaps in the whole of this field, but look at the eyes of Jan Ullrich. He really is having great difficulty supporting this bad weather.
Well, it's bitterly cold as well, and he's been trying to squint through atrocious conditions with driving rain, often so cold, almost hailstones today. Hasn't affected Pantani, though. The little man has danced once again to the summit of a mountain in the Tour de France. This will be, I think, his 6th stage win in the Tour de France over the years, his 2nd of this year's Tour. And this is going to be one of the sweetest, I think, because now the Maglia Rosa of the Giro d'Italia can be joined by its partner, the maillot jaune of the Tour de France.
Well, it really has been a tough day for everyone in the Tour de France this afternoon. Although it was 12 degrees Celsius in the valley roads, over the top of the big mountains, especially the Col de la Galibier, the temperature plummeted to 4 degrees Celsius, which is only just above freezing, which is why so many of these riders this afternoon have suffered like they have.
And almost 6 hours in the saddle as Marco Pantani comes into view of the crowd at the top of Les Deux Alpes. And again, a very fast stage, 33 kilometers an hour. So he's done it again. He's this time, though, what he wants is waiting for him. When he saw the route back in October, he said, the Tour isn't for me, I'll come out and win stages. He seemed to confirm that with a terrible prologue time, and now in the Pyrenees and the Alps, he's come right back into the reckoning. And Bobby Julich will not let go of this year's Tour de France. He continues on as he races now up to the finish. Also already gone through is Christophe Renero, so Julich will get 5th on the stage. And a lot further down, watch the time on the right here. Ullrich is 9 minutes back today. Nobody would have put a bet on that. Our camera's unable to follow Massi, Escartin and Renero, but Bobby Julich was right in there, and I bet he was surprised today by the performance of Marco Pantani.
Yeah, I sure was. I mean, obviously he wasn't affected by these adverse conditions at all. I mean, I felt totally blocked on the Galibier, totally froze on the descent, and didn't really feel good at all at the end. You know, I just went and tried to limit my losses to him, but I mean, he still took 6 minutes out of us or whatever. That's not even funny. I mean, but you know, there's a long way to go, and Marco's a proven champion, and he should have the leadership in the Tour de France after a day like today. You know, he seems to perform under any condition, and just my hat goes off to him for sure.
You're surprised to see Ulrich crack today, although he did have the flat tire at the bottom of the climb. He then went to pieces.
I don't know what happened. All I know is that today is very, very unpredictable. Anything can happen because of the weather. To tell you the truth, he was very, very strong. I mean, I don't know what happened. I didn't even know he flatted. We just came to the bottom of the climb, and I was just trying to limit my losses to Pantani. I expected Ulrich to be right with me, but I mean, we all have our bad days, we all have our problems, and I'm sure he'll recover and have a great Tour de France anyways.
And you're still second overall, so still some hopes about winning this race?
There's always a hope.
Well done, Bobby. Of course, there's always a hope. This is the Tour de France, and he still stays second overall, despite this man, a tornado that blew through the Alps on a great ride. Marco Pantani, the top dog in the Tour de France. Now he pulls on the maillot jaune as race leader, and it's the closest the race will come to Italy, leading Bobby Julich by 3 minutes and 53 seconds. Interesting to see there, Cofidis have 2 men in the top 5 overall, as our second day in the Alps takes us to Albertville, 204 kilometres. Pantani's the man. Even if your name is Marco Pantani and you see the mountains as your friends, could you have prophesied that you would fall off on one climb, attack on the next, be so cold you stopped to pull on a jacket, and then finish 9 minutes in front of the leader to claim the maillot jaune in the Tour de France? Of course not. But the little remarkable Italian did just that in the race yesterday. Last night, though, he was under no illusions as to the standard of his achievement.
Con un tempo incredibile, perché ho sempre sofferto un po' il freddo e questa mattina ero molto nervoso, come si conviene nelle tappe che contano, e poi sono caduto in salita, ho sbattuto il ginocchio, mi sono un po' innervosito e poi niente, sono riuscito a rimanere sempre coi primi, e poi un attacco da lontano, perché era, penso, l'unica possibilità di provare qualche cosa diciamo di importante. Non ci credevo, perché sai, non pensavo di avere questa forza di resistere a così a lungo.
But he did, and he has become the most popular leader of the Tour de France for many years. He is now 3 minutes 53 seconds ahead of Bobby Julich. Poor Jan Ullrich, he's dropped back to 4th at almost 6 minutes. Well, 17 days ago, Marco Pantani finished 181st in the prologue in Dublin. It seemed he'd come to the Tour resting on his laurels as winner of the recent Giro d'Italia. By finishing in the bunch every day, he arrived in the Pyrenees in 47th place, 8 minutes 27 seconds back. Then he moved. On stage 10 in the Pyrenees, he climbed to 11th. Next day, he won to climb up to 3rd place overall, and on his first day in the Alps, he destroyed the field. And at that remarkable day yesterday, everybody now asking the question, has Marco Pantani gained enough time to win the Tour de France when you consider there is still a long time trial to come? Well, he showed us this year in the Tour of Italy, when he's the leader of a big-time stage race, he can ride a time trial well. And for that reason, I think he has gained enough time. But what about Jan Ullrich? That spectacular collapse yesterday, will he even continue in this Tour? Here's Gary Imlach now to update us.
The only excess baggage Jan Ullrich was carrying up the climbs yesterday was under his eyes. But at least one former Tour winner believes that it may have been the weight he put on in the winter that cost him the stage, if not the race.
Je pense que ça peut être une explication de sa défaillance hier. Il a dû, ces derniers mois, fournir de gros efforts pour revenir en forme. Et peut-être qu'il le paye maintenant avec le froid, les changements de température, les efforts.
Ullrich himself blamed the weight of the yellow jersey, saying it had been a mistake to take the race lead so early and have to work hard to defend it. This morning, having been relieved of the responsibility, he was back in the pink.
Well, and on the start line for this 204-kilometre stage, because a lot of his German friends in the media thought he wouldn't come out to race today, but I hope his morale has recovered completely, and Jan Ullrich can still challenge Marco Pantani, because this man is feeling pretty confident now.
He must do too, because he realises the only threat that this man Jan Ullrich can give to him is in the final time trial. But look at Ullrich there, he's got plasters on his knees and also behind his knee on his right leg there as well. That's obviously some form of tendon problem after the cold of yesterday.
Well, on these early parts of the stage, the riders all around, there's the wind speed, very low today, coming up from the south,
and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's a nicer day in prospect as we climb, of course, the big daddy of them all, the Col de la Madeleine, which comes near the end, Paul.
Very difficult climb, and I know it well because in one of the Tour de France's that I didn't finish, I actually abandoned there on the slopes of the Col de la Madeleine. But it's a tricky day through the Alps, and this early break of 3 riders picking their way down the first descent of the day. And you can see in the middle there, André Tituriak has actually taken a very bad line there, Phil.
You could say that. He completely misjudged the bend there, Tituriak. Well, I'll tell you what, this isn't the same rider. This is another rider on the same bend from the same team, and this is, in fact, Verbrugge of the Lotto team, Rick Verbrugge. He went down exactly the same point on the descent of the Col de Port. We're now moving across to the Col de la Madeleine, where the action's at the front, and my goodness me it is, because this is Jan Ullrich having the audacity to attack right at the start of the climb. Only Pantani is going after him.
Pantani's having a hard time getting up to the wheel as well. What a turnaround for the Bots there. Jan Ullrich blown away yesterday's comeback today. Phil is proving that he's a real champion, trying to put the yellow jersey into difficulty, and behind Pipoli trying to respond. Good reaction by Marco Pantani, but I think that will have ruffled his feathers.
And that's Escartine crawling all over his bicycle here to try and get up to make it a leading group of 4, and he's just about on. But in fact, Ullrich is keeping the pressure on here. Pantani is just going to try and control him at this early stage, I think. The Col de la Madeleine is a vicious climb. It'll take a brave man or a confident one to attack quite as early as Jan Ullrich has done. Look at the gap he's open now. And Bobby Julich, remember, is still in this group along with his teammate Raniero.
There's Bobby Julich there in second place. Alongside him is Raniero, who's keeping the pace high, pacing his man Bobby Julich. And further up the road, the man who really lit the race alight, Stefan Hurlo, trying to ride himself high in the overall standings, but he would not have expected the attack to come from Jan Ullrich.
Hurlo's been out front all day since the start of the Col de Port with Aldag and Tituriak, and one by one they've been chiselled out. He won the climb of the Port, the climb of the Crucheron, and he was second over the Granier. Look at this attack, Paul. This is the way to do it.
This is the way to do it. He looked at all of his compatriots there in the breakaway to see just how they were riding. He could see a lot of them already in difficulty and said, right, now's the time for me to go. And he almost caught Marco Pantani unawares. But the Italian leader of the Tour de France decided to respond quite dramatically. One advantage, though, Phil, for the man Jan Ullrich, in fact, is Rolf Aldag, who was in the earlier breakaway, is still a little way up the road in front of him.
Well, he certainly hasn't come into our camera lens yet, although I don't think he's going to have much joy in hanging on to these two when they pick him up. Ullrich is riding superbly again. One bad day. Has he lost the Tour de France? It's now a huge question mark, you know, because he's going clear now, and Bobby Julich is the man being damaged by this attack. Pantani is just sitting there, and why shouldn't he? Because the yellow jersey now is on his shoulders.
The big losers on that attack there looks to be Team Cofidis, because there on the front was Roland Meyer. Second position was Christophe Raniero and Bobby Julich using his teammates. Now they're the ones who've been put in the position of defence. They have to try and respond to that attack by Jan Ullrich, and I don't think anyone would have expected that to happen after this man lost 9 minutes yesterday.
There must have been some heavy talking last night in the hotel. It wouldn't surprise me if Bjarne Riis and Udo Boos didn't sit down the young Ullrich and say to him, look, this happens in the big tours, you've got to recover, and tomorrow hit them hard on the Madeleine and see what happens. And what has happened is that only Pantani has gone with him, and Pantani isn't going to help him at all, and he's no reason to.
He has no reason at all. He's in the position of defence. He's the leader of the Tour de France, and Jan Ullrich is attempting to dislodge him from that position. But what a great move. Ullrich is showing the power that he has on a climb like this, sitting down using a very big gear. You can see here the difference in styles as Pantani's out of the saddle, punching at the pedals as often as he can.
Well, this is Meyer again, who rode so well in the mountains and now trying to pull up the Cofidis team. As a team, they are almost untouchable in the team classification of this race. They've ridden so well as a group, and this despite losing their leader on the very first day in the mountains, Casagrande. But Julich now, I wonder what he's thinking now, because he knows that these top two boys are riding away from him, and if they're well clear over the top of the Madeleine, I don't see anybody pulling them back. Here's the remnants of the breakaway. It looks as though Hurlo is clear on his own, but Tituriak and Aldag's seen his teammate coming. Now there's a teammate for you. He still found the strength to accelerate.
Aldag certainly gets number one today for Team Domestique. He's been the breakaway very early on. He went out there because they felt as if Telecom had lost the Tour de France, and now the table has completely turned, and he's finding some strength, I don't know from where, to try and pace his man Jan Ullrich just a little bit further. He will push himself for the next kilometre or so, but he won't last, Phil, because he cannot match the big engine that Jan Ullrich has.
Well, it's been only half a season for Aldag, having had an accident right at the start of it, but he seems to have found his legs in time for the Tour. He's such a valuable helper on the Team Telecom. And now he's just trying to give Ullrich a little bit of a break, halfway up the climb before he dies and drops away from the leaderboard here, Aldag, and then it'll be one-on-one again. But hats off to Rolf Aldag. This takes a lot of courage.
A lot of courage and a lot of pain. You can see the pain on his face. You can almost feel what he's going through, but for him, all he's thinking about now is trying to turn the tables, trying to put Marco Pantani into difficulty and give his teammate Jan Ullrich a little bit of a breather. Team manager Walter Godefroot coming along in the team car there, just giving him a shout, giving him a little bit of encouragement to help him push himself just that little bit further.
It's a 12-mile climb of the Col here, and at the moment they're still climbing on the top chain rings, which gives you some idea under attack here how they keep the pressure on. The gap is opening dramatically over the rest of the field, and surely we're not going to see the sort of time gaps we saw yesterday.
Well, that's it for Rolf Aldag. He did his turn. It lasted about 1 kilometre, just enough to give Jan Ullrich a breather, and now he picks it up once again on the flatter part of this climb. I say the flatter part is all the way up to the top, a 12-mile climb, but some of the inclines are not quite as steep. But when it does level out a little bit, then Jan Ullrich can get his big gear going, get his big engine, and look at that, the shadow of Rolf Aldag just disappears from the scene.
Well, among the riders going out today, Jans Rurada, the sprinter, so we won't see him in the closing stages trying to win the sprints. And also Jimenez, Jose Maria Jimenez from the Benesto team, also retired during the stage today so far.
Stefan Erlo still the lone leader now with a 55-second advantage over the train. But look at the difference in the speed, Phil. He's almost stopped. He's been out at the front of this race for a long time. A very aggressive rider, himself a former wearer of the yellow jersey in the Tour de France. In fact, he was the last man to abandon wearing the yellow jersey before Chris Boardman did this year.
And he did that with tendinitis on top of a mountain as well. But now he's about to see the two strongest riders. I think it's a fair comment to say that now in this year's Tour de France make the way up towards him. And Jan Ullrich, well, now this is a champion, a man who has won the Tour de France. He blew big time yesterday and has come out the very next day and put in an attack like this. You can't be any more full of admiration of him right now than we are. But he's still got to get rid of Pantani, and Pantani has that lovely feeling of having big-time protection now between him and the man who wears number one.
All he has to do is mark the attack, mark the rhythm of Jan Ullrich at the moment, because he's making big-time gaps over the rest of the field as well. But look at this, they've pulled back that 55 seconds in no time at all, Phil, and very shortly another man will be dispatched, and we'll have two leaders out on the road. Number 1, Jan Ullrich, number 21, Marco Pantani. I'm sure will get rid of Stefan Erlo as soon as they ride by him.
I just wonder, he's looking over, he looks very, very tired now. Has he got any strength in those legs? When you see these two riders come through, you're going to have to feel pretty special to jump on the back wheel. There's a sort of half-hearted attempt here by Stefan Erlo to try and hold on to Pantani, who's clearly pedaling a lower gear than Ullrich. But Ullrich is pounding that big gear and distancing already, Stefan.
Certainly was a lot of talking went on last night, I would think. The coach of Jan Ullrich was on the phone, Peter Becker. He would have been explaining to him, look, you are a great champion. You can't walk away from the Tour de France. And certainly our friends from the German television felt that Jan Ullrich would not start the stage this morning, but he's come out fighting to prove that he is a great champion at 23 years of age. He's bounced back from that terrible day he had yesterday, and he's going out to fight the Tour de France all the way up to Paris.
Well, he slipped away from the overall podium position, but I think he's getting himself back up there in one fell swoop today on the second day in the Alps. There's still more days still to come, but the hills get a little bit less severe. That was why Pantani said he could never win this Tour, because the route wasn't tough enough. But I guess he wasn't reckoning on a Tour quite as controversial as this one is certainly turning out to be. So Jan Ullrich now is facing a picture of pain, but it's a different sort of a pain now. This one is a pain of aggression rather than a pain of defeat.
Well, his face still showing the markings of that terrible day yesterday. I think he had a hard time with that cold weather. He wasn't able to support it. I think his muscles really did suffer from the coldness getting in there. He's also probably paid from the fact that he lost a lot of weight coming up to the Tour de France much too quickly, and that's why he had that very bad day yesterday on the climb to Les Deux Alpes. But Marco Pantani, once he sees the top of this climb, I think will be quite relieved, because he now knows that there's not much more that Jan Ullrich can do. It's all downhill to the finish in Albertville.
On with the arm warmers. Excuse me, can I have my cape? Thanks a lot. Ullrich goes over the top first at the top of the Col de la Madeleine, an all-category climb, maximum points there. That will make a great deal of difference to his standings in the mountains. Pantani second over the top now. It is the best part of 20 miles now, basically all downhill into Albertville. And I'm always amazed when I say that the races never finish in or started for that matter, in Albertville before. It was the Olympic city, of course, back in the Winter Olympic Games of 1992.
Strangely enough, there are so many towns the Tour de France goes to, you're quite convinced that it's been there many times before. The Tour's been through Albertville, but it never has actually finished there, and this will be the first time that the Tour goes down there. And what a day, because Jan Ullrich is bouncing back in this year's Tour de France. Pantani still for the moment not doing any work at all, and the chasing group with Axel Merckx slipping in there over 2 minutes back.
Pipoli takes them over in third place. And in fact, Julich just behind Pipoli there. Escartin is here, Renero is here, Bogart is in the group as well. Bjarne Riis is hanging on the back just behind Axel Merckx. A very select little group that now as we make our way down. Not a big wide road descent like the Galibier, the Col de la Madeleine. It's a little twisty and tortuous as the riders now pick their way gently down towards the valley. But the climbing for the day is behind them, and Ullrich's attack has only succeeded in ridding him of everyone except the one that he wanted to rid himself of.
There's Stefan Herlo. He's been picked up by the chasing group, obviously suffering a lot there, stretching his leg back up there to try and get a bit of freedom back into those muscles, and he's in the group now, which has been joined as well by Jean-Cyril Robin. But a great ride there in third position. You can just make out Axel Merckx. He was 11th on yesterday's big mountain stage. Didn't make much noise about it, but Axel in his first Tour de France is climbing himself well up into the overall rankings.
Which will be a great result for him in his first tour. Anyway, 1 kilometre to go now. We're running in towards the finish in Albertville. And it looks as though we're going to see a sprint between these two. It reminds me of the arrival of Tony Rominger and Miguel Indurain in the Alps a few years back now. And Rominger would not give the stage victory to Indurain at all. Indurain was very annoyed about that when he did all of the work and Rominger followed. You can't say that today because in fact it's been completely the reverse. Pantani has done the following and Jan Ullrich has done the pacemaking.
Well, the gap there has come inside 2 minutes now, so that's keeping Bobby Julich second place in the overall standing safe. But Jan Ullrich still pounding out. He's not even thinking about the stage victory at the moment. I think what is more important to him is to get as much time as possible, but shortly he's going to try and push Marco Pantani to the front because Pantani is looking very fresh, and I wonder if he's going to think about sprinting it out.
Well, I would think he is, you know, because the little pirate there is not a renowned sprinter at all, of course, and Ullrich is a fair finisher when it means a stage victory. Don't forget, he's the ex-amateur world champion. Title he won when he was 19 years of age, but Pantani's going to have a go for this one now. Ullrich is coming at him. It's going to be very close, though, because Pantani continues and kicks again. There's no end to this little man's talents. He's lost it on the line, but only just to Jan Ullrich, who gets another stage win in this year's event. It was close, though, as Escartin is bringing home the rest of the main pack of riders here. Renero and Julich are in this group. So, too, is Axel Merckx over to the right in the all-red strip. I think, well, I'm not too sure there's Julich or Escartin there who got it. I think it probably went in the favour of Julich. This is the sprint for first place, and a late run there by Jan Ullrich gets him a second stage win in this year's Tour de France. And it's nice to see him get a road race win to add to his time trial win. But what a race Pantani is having. Another second place for him now to match up with the one he's had previously, plus, of course, his win yesterday, which gave him the lead in the King of the Mountains. This is turning out to be a terrific race, despite all the confusion and scandal surrounding the Tour with drugs. Ullrich then wins ahead of Pantani. Julich, Escartin, Axel Merckx comes into the picture now in fifth place, and Michael Bulgert, the ever-present Dutchman, there in sixth, and still looking good for a very high finish in Paris. Overall, Not too much change, but Bobby Julich is now only just ahead of Jan Ullrich. Big battle there. Fernando Escartin is hanging on in fourth place. And Christophe Nerero is also riding extremely well in this Tour. The mountains stay with the Tour de France now as we continue through the Alps and we leave Albertville again. And it's going to be a pretty tough ride indeed. Pantani in yellow, Zabel in green, and Massey in the polka dot, but there's more scandal on the horizon.
The riders of the Tour de France stop in protest for the second time in a week. This time it's over their treatment by the French authorities, who last night raided a team hotel. Police took away members of the TVM team and forced them to have compulsory medical tests. They were finally returned to the hotel at midnight, having eaten nothing. And so the riders today at the 32nd kilometre at the first sprint of the day at Saint-Jorioz, they protested to Jean-Marie Leblanc, and the main protagonist was Laurent Jalabert, the champion of France, who was joined in the protest by Luc Leblanc, the former world champion. Monsieur Leblanc appealed to the riders and the team directors as friends to continue on the race today. But it wasn't good enough for Laurent Jalabert. He said the riders were again being treated badly, and Jean-Marie Leblanc in fact did promise he would contact the authorities at the highest level and asked them to respect the athletes who have pedalled now 3,000 kilometres and almost 3 weeks of cycling, and to handle the investigations they want in a more dignified manner. Even so, Laurent Jalabert did pull out his ONCE team and has refused to carry on in the Tour de France.
It's also ridiculous is what the police did to TVM last night. That's not right. I mean, if that happened in America, there'd be some lawsuits and there'd be hundreds of $millions at stake, because you just can't barge into people's rooms and demand that they come to the police station and give hair samples, urine samples, blood samples, whatever they had to do in the middle of the night. That's ridiculous.
Among those riders who did restart, although very, very slowly, saying that they will continue on the race route, but it wouldn't be a race, they would do it purely to allow the public to see them. And indeed, the public were cheering and clapping as they moved. Marco Pantani, the race leader, helped by a teammate, started to take off his number. And this spread throughout the peloton. The majority of riders did take off their numbers, and it was clear then they would not continue in the Tour de France today.
And that was indeed the way it turned out to be. The race stopped at 32 kilometres. It stopped again a little bit further down the road, and the riders continued on. A number of teams pulling out of the race, including the Benesto team and the ONCE team, and the few riders who were actually left in the Riso Scotty team. There were only 3 that also went out of the race. And overnight as well, other riders would retire from the race. So let's hope the Tour de France can get back to normal for the remaining few days to Paris. But for now, let's get back to nicer things. Here's Gary Imlach with the tale of a good mate of ours.
If you've ever bought a cycling magazine, you'll know the work of Graham Watson. He's one of the world's best and most respected cycling photographers. And all the way back at the start of the race in Dublin, he had a retrospective show covering nearly 2 decades of his work on the Tour.
You'd have to try and freeze moments during each day. Action, emotion, drama, tragedy. It's a very unusual sport. It's not like any other sport, as far as I know. You really are almost in the race with them. And there's no question of not being motivated. It's impossible. You know, it's just the drama, his black eyes. He had a crash a few years earlier. He's winning the Tour. He's absolutely riding at his maximum. The crowds are, cheering for him. Fignon, very different. He wasn't uncooperative, but he was very temperamental, equally dramatic, in that he wears glasses, which is very unusual for a cyclist. But he was one of the most photogenic guys of his period. Roach, big smiling, happy face. He's won the Tour de France. Nice portrait of him. And that's how he's best photographed. Delgado, just like a tiger. He won the Tour in '88, and to me it's one of the most exciting Tours de France. He's got this aggression in his face, this emotion, which all I can describe as a tiger. Le Mans, totally different guy. An absolute outrageous character sometimes. Super strong, super athlete, but equally unusually a very, very outgoing, bubbly, lively character. And this picture sums him up on the podium. Adrian was my favourite, simply physically. He was a giant, and he had a dignity about him which no other cyclist I've ever seen has ever had before. He was a prince-like creature. You kind of felt you had to sort of bow to him every morning before you took his picture. There's a killer instinct in the eyes, which is unusual in a guy so quiet and placid. Reece, very different. The guy was 30 odd when he won the tour. In that picture you see the raw edges on. He's on the very limit, and there's not much more to give. Very intense, but also very frail looking. Ulrich, phenomenal. Staring straight at you. He's almost growling in this picture. It looks as though he's growling at his competitor, but he's actually completely alone, just going 100%. I've got two particular shots which I like very much. Actually, three shots. One is of Hinault and Greg LeMond in the 1986 Tour de France, and that picture kind of sums up the whole tour. It's completely false, because Hinault looks very, very good in it. It looks like he's helping Greg, but in actual fact he raced against him. The other one I like is Fignon pouring water over his feet. It's a rarity. I mean, he's sat on a curbstone by the finish line, no crowd barriers anymore. Those days we probably had crowd barriers for 20 yards after the finish. And here's the champion of France, on his way to winning the Tour de France, sat down on the pavement, pouring bottles of Perrier over his feet. That would never happen now. The other one I like is of Wilfried Peters pushing a little kid along in the peloton one day about 8 years ago. This kid just crept into the peloton. He must have been 8 years old, dressed completely as a world champion with all the gear, the hat, the bicycle, everything. And these guys pushed him along. I don't see it as art. Without sounding vain, I feel like I'm performing to a small public who are going to buy the magazines that my stuff appears in, who may go and see the exhibition. You feel like you're performing in a very small way, and obviously you're aware that you're working with other performers who are much more important, but everybody's kind of performing, and you're aware you want to give your best.
Graham Watson today getting the kind of pictures he wouldn't really want for his portfolio, but nonetheless it is the story of a controversial Tour de France today, which is surrounded by these allegations of doping. But let's remember that nobody yet has given a positive dope test in this year's Tour de France. We're looking at the riders now as they come down towards the finish in Aix-les-Bains. It should have been the end of a very quick 149 kilometres. In fact, it couldn't be much slower than this, because at local time now it's almost 7:30 in the evening, and the TVM riders are coming through to the front. And it is because of the way the TVM riders were treated yesterday, taken into custody by police for compulsory medical checks, that the riders have performed this go slow. I think over the next 6 months it's going to have quite serious repercussions within the sport of cycling. But there's the TVM riders coming over the line, and Sergei Ivanov is the rider on the right in the Russian National Championships jersey. He must wonder what on earth has happened, because he's just joined the team and he was a very, very promising amateur rider. Eric Zabel there in the green jersey, but no points for him today in that green jersey competition. It's almost his anyway, and we've just got to hope that it gets back to normal tomorrow. The TVM riders, though, are the centre of the controversy, and of course as soon as the race finished, it was the TVM riders the press was seeking out to have words with, to find out just how they felt about all of the proceedings.
I think the whole peloton was won today, and yeah, I hope things are going to change now.
How angry are the riders?
I think they are very angry, yeah? Because we all treated like criminals, and with all the press and everything around us, and the police, and yeah, we're not getting a decent. They're not handling decent with us, and so it's not good what is happening now.
But the unhappy events continued, and later that evening, after a Spanish radio phone-in, the two remaining Spanish teams pulled out, Kelme and Vitalico. It meant that fourth place Fernando Escartin was gone as well. It got even worse as Frenchman Luc Leblanc said he would not continue, while police detained the King of the Mountains leader Rodolfo Massi on suspicion of drug trafficking. He was kept in custody, and next morning was also missing from the field, which was now down to 103. Massi's casino team were persuaded to continue despite their low morale, and the 218 kilometres from Aix-les-Bains to Neuchâtel in Switzerland was run off at a very quick pace. As they came towards the finish, a group of 45 was battling for the win. Well, this is a perfect launching pad for Zabel. The telecoms are all there now as they all start to go for the line. Surely they will move away. Robin McEwen trying to get through with Leon Van Bon. But watch out for the green jersey of Zabel, because Steels has gone over to our left now as they come up towards the line. Tom Steels and Zabel shoulder. The shoulder, Zabel's got the lead now, up towards the line. Eric Zabel and Tom Steels, shoulder to shoulder. It's going to be desperate. Steels gets it, I think. I think it was Tom Steels on the line. 3 for him, I think, but that's gone to the photo. Let's have a look here now. And in fact, the Mappe rider pulled his foot off the pedal. That unsettled everybody as they launched for the line. Zabel went to the far right. It took Steels a little bit longer to get himself going here, and he dived across to grab the wheel of Eric Zabel. And again, Zabel seems to have led out a little bit too soon and starts to run out of puff. And as he starts to get challenged, Tom Steels now has this amazing acceleration. Look at that, like the best days of Cipollini. And Tom Steels gets it.
It was a very, very hard race, a very fast race. We rode the last 100 kilometers in less than 2 hours. They told me that I did the last 200 meters at 73 kilometers an hour, so everybody is motivated, and it's good for us, it's good for the tour, it's good for the future, I think.
It's good for Tom Steels as well, but the overall unchanged Pantani, Julich, Ulrich and Aero, it looks rather familiar now, and the gaps are still there. Bobby Julich hanging on. It could be showdown in the time trial between Julich and Ulrich. So the end of the stage at Neuchâtel, a polka dot jersey for Christophe Renero. He refused to wear it the previous day after the arrest of Rodolfo Massi, who was the leader, but he'll certainly wear it from tomorrow onwards. Tomorrow takes us from this lovely town here, La Chaux-de-Fonds in Switzerland. We head over now to Autun, back in France, 242 kilometres, but we'll do it without the TVM team. They decided to fly directly home to Holland from Switzerland, thus bypassing France and all of the problems that they've had there.
But despite the fact that there has been a lot of problems around the Tour de France, Phil, the crowd's still turning out in the millions to watch these riders go by, and many of these riders now just hoping to get up to Paris and get this Tour de France behind them.
Well, the stage is almost behind them now as this little breakaway is trying to sort things out. Derame is the rider in the mauve-coloured hair for US Postal, and this is a breakaway which has been shaping the race virtually all day. At one stage today it had 17 minutes over the field, and now it's a matter of sorting out the stage win. There are 4 of them left in the action. Dembacke is the rider for Rabobank in second place, and Mazzolini, Eddie Mazzolini is the Seiko rider. The man at the back is the tall blonde rider. He is almost as tall as Eros Poli. That's Magnus Backstedt here. But Derame is trying to win it for US Postal. They've tried hard for a stage win. They haven't got it yet. But now it looks as though Backstedt is going to become the first Swedish rider ever to get a stage. He gets it on the line. So Backstedt is the winner. Tremendous result for the tall Swede from Chris Boardman's GAN team. He came from the back of these 4 riders, and he should be pretty pleased with the way that's gone, Paul.
Certainly did. He waited till the very last moment. He could see this was an uphill drag to the line. He knew anybody who started too soon would crack, and he put his effort in right at the last minute. Very happy with his win.
You did it! Well, the first win is always the best, and the first win for your country is something really special. But all the favourites now on the eve of the time trial, so Paul Sherwin has taken the opportunity to speak now with Bobby Julich.
Well, Bobby, a fairly standard day the day before a time trial. You happy with the way things went?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't help for anything more on a 240K stage, just sitting on the wheels all day. That's always nice. Tomorrow is going to be hard enough, and that's where the race is going to be decided, so no use really getting into any trouble today.
Last year you were 4th on the final time trial, but you didn't have the motivation that you're going to have this time.
That's for sure. I mean, I had motivation, but nothing like that I have now. I mean, I could I've worked my whole life, my whole career, 13 years of racing my bicycle, waiting for an opportunity like this, and I hope the legs respond.
The top step of the podium seems an awful long way off, but there's a big battle between you and Ulrich. Would you prefer to be second?
Would I prefer to be second? Of course I would prefer to be second. I mean, but just being on the podium, period, is an honor, and to be on the podium with those two guys, I don't think you can get much better company, so I'd be quite honored.
Well, good luck to Bobby. Now the time trial is 52 kilometers. Only 96 riders left in the race. It's the final time trial of this year's Tour de France. The moment has come when each rider races alone to stake his claim to a high finish on the Champs-Élysées tomorrow. No hiding now, just flat-out effort and hope it's good enough. Overall, Marco Pantani leads the race and will be last to start the time trial. Bobby Julich and Jan Ullrich will be involved in a personal battle to settle second place, while at the same time see if they can catch the Italian. Ulrich is the best time trialist of the three. He took 4 minutes 21 seconds off Pantani and 78 seconds off Julich in the last time trial in this race 2 weeks ago. Julich has never beaten Ulrich in a Tour trial. The American is under no illusions. So the maillot jaune is for Pantani to lose. In June in the Tour of Italy, he produced a great ride in the final time trial. He'll need to do the same again now. Weather conditions are not good. The roads could be slippery and the risk of punctures high for some of the riders. To take the lead off Pantani, Bobby Julich must gain 6.5 seconds per kilometre, while Jan Ullrich needs 6.8.
Just a few more minutes.
So the pressure all on Jan Ullrich. It's a tall order to ask him to do that. 6.8 seconds a kilometre, even if it is on Marco Pantani, but he's on his way. So Ullrich is now on course and looking like he's going to have to do something very special. At least he can aim for second place overall.
That's the most important thing for him, to go out and prove himself in a time trial at the end of the Tour de France, which has been a very difficult Tour de France for him this year. An interesting point, the rear wheel there, 28 inches, and Bobby Julich looking very relaxed on the starting gate.
It certainly is. He starts now behind Jan Ullrich and in front of Marco Pantani. He has got to pull out something very special indeed now to hold on to second place in the Tour de France. But even that, you know, even third place, Paul, had to be beyond his wildest dreams 3 weeks ago.
Most certainly must have been, because the only other American to have finished on the podium in Paris is Greg LeMond, and he won 3 Tours. So Bobby Julich certainly going to be the second best performance ever by an American rider at the Tour.
Worth noting too, over this final week, Greg LeMond is around with a cycling group watching the Tour de France from the saddle. I heard he got lost up Alpe d'Huez the other day. I thought he might have known that route better than most. Anyway, let's stay on the time trial now. It's one-on-one here. Ullrich versus Bobby Julich. These two men racing for second place in Paris. I think it's fair to say that, because I don't think anybody's going to reach Marco Pantani. Not after the confidence booster he got in the Giro d'Italia earlier this year when he came into the time trial. They said Tonkov would beat him and take the pink jersey. Well, nothing could have been further from the truth. He actually did beat Tonkov.
Amazing performance by Pantani on that occasion. It just goes to show how much a leader's jersey can change the morale of a man. But it is a difficult time trial course around here this afternoon, Phil, and these weather conditions will make it much more treacherous than it would have been in the dry.
Well, here's Chateriuk. His Czech times have been very, very good out on the course. He's challenging the best time at the finish of Vyacheslav Yekimov, US Postal. Good return to form for Slava there. But now is Chateriuk going to make this a new man on the leaderboard? He's from Kazakhstan, by the way. Both are members of former Iron Curtain Soviet Union. And on the line, Chateriuk is just fractionally better.
Just 2 seconds ahead, but this is the man out on the course riding the fastest time so far, and you can see the power of Jan Ullrich on that special machine, based on a machine that in fact came from the track, and it was used by the West Germans in the team pursuit and then drafted across to the road, and they used it very successfully in the team time trial.
Well, these are the legs of Bobby Julich riding, remember, 3 minutes behind Jan Ullrich. And so he'll get the benefit of time checks shouted at him out on the course. I'm not sure you want to hear of them. We're waiting to pick up the first time checks. This is the last man on the course, Pantani. We don't expect him to lead at the time checks, but we don't expect him to lose that 6.8 seconds per kilometre either.
Julich in a very good aerodynamic position. You can see the power that he's got, but the top part of his body rocking a little bit as opposed to that of Jan Ullrich, which is rock steady and very firm on the machine. Ulrich now in a very large gear. These riders all looking at 54-tooth chainring on the front and an 11-tooth sprocket on the back, and Ulrich riding along here at around about 48 kilometers an hour.
So that's 30 miles an hour for Jan Ulrich, and this is really quite an undulating course here. He pushes it up another gear now. Out on the climb just behind Ulrich is Julich. And Julich looks as though he is riding a pretty good time trial out there now. Let's go to the check at 32 kilometers covered, and this is Bjarne Riis, and he's way off the pace here as he goes through. Only 43rd, Paul, so the injury they say he has must be true.
Certainly is. He's got a very bad tendon behind his knee, and that really has affected his performance this afternoon. But the man now looking at the next time check on the road is number 1, last year's winner. Jan Ulrich goes through there, and I'm fairly sure that shortly we will be told that is the fastest time.
And back to Pantani. He's racing some 6 minutes behind Julich, Ulrich rather. Julich is 3 minutes and sandwiched in between them both. And in fact, Ulrich has gone through with the best time. There's the confirmation, 19:28. Julich's 27 seconds slower, and Pantani only 49 seconds lost in the first 16 kilometers.
He's doing a stormer. He really is riding a magnificent time trial. Now the next time check, the time of Jan Ulrich, 31 minutes 49 seconds. Bobby Julich's going to go outside of that, 26 seconds, so he will be losing his second place in the overall standings.
And ironically hanging on to second place in the time trial right now. But look at this, Raniero has been caught now by Jan Ulrich, so he's bridged the 3-minute gap there now. Raniero a little bit inspired by the bypassing there of Jan Ulrich. Pantani also still riding the time trial yet again of his life here in the Tour de France. He's riding 3rd place. The top 3 riders in the Tour de France are setting the best 3 times on the course.
Incredible ride by Pantani, but now we're coming to the part of the course that will suit Bobby Julich, as in fact Marco Pantani taking a few risks there going around 1 or 2 of these corners, but Ulrich using his power. Look at the way he's pedaling now, up around about 100 revolutions per minute, keeping the speed high, while Pantani always accelerating.
Well, at 45 kilometers from covered, 54 seconds was the gap to Bobby Julich, and it's going to be even a little bit more than that now. Baranowski's still the leader on the board. That will all change with the arrival of Jan Ulrich. His 3rd stage win of the Tour for sure now. His time's better than the 2 that remain. Jan Ulrich, though, I don't think is going to claim the leader's yellow jersey, but he should have done enough to claim 2nd place in Paris tomorrow.
You can see how hard he's tried, Phil. He wants to go out and prove a point today. He wants to try and ride himself as close as possible to Marco Pantani. He's done enough to get 2nd place in the overall standings, but you know, Bobby Julich has ridden a good time too.
Well, Bobby has given us some great time trials this past 2 years of the Tour de France. This is his 2nd tour. And Julich now is riding to probably the 2nd best time of the day, so if he's going to lose 2nd place overall, he's going to lose it in style. He comes up towards the finish now, 1:4:53 for Bobby Julich, so he has lost 2nd overall. And Marco Pantani, Paul, I think has done enough to win the Tour de France.
He certainly has. Look at this. He's taken the bike that he used in the final time trial of the Tour of Italy this afternoon. And what a magnificent performance. We're calculating how much he had to lose. Well, he hasn't lost very much at all, and he's going to take 3rd place in this time trial.
So Marco Pantani comes to the line, and he comes through in style as well. He'll get the 3rd best time of the day. He will keep his lead in the Tour de France. Yes, it will be reduced, but it won't matter now. I would say the margin he's got now will be the one he will take to Paris. 1:6:27 on the line for Marco Pantani. So he stays in yellow. Jan Ulrich will come up into 2nd place. So there's the face of Marco Pantani, the spray coming off his back wheel. But one of the riders, of course, who did the ride was Bobby Julich. That's the situation in the time trial. Now let's go to Paul Sherwin, who can speak again with Bobby Julich.
Bobby, over the first part of the time trial course, you managed to rival Jan Ulrich, but over the latter parts, you couldn't keep up with him.
I had no idea what the splits were. I told my team car to not tell me anything. So, I don't know, I felt good, but, you know, I knew that you'd have to have a terrific day to beat Jan Ulrich. And I don't know even what place I am in on the stage, but 2nd. So hey, you know, Jan is a terrific athlete and now a good friend. I mean, we had a great time here together. We both suffered bad, but we both supported each other. And you know, Pantani came out of nowhere and twapped all of us. but I think Jan and I have a long career here in the Tour de France, and it's going to be an honor to be with those two guys on the podium.
So there's the situation overall. Pantani, Ulrich, Julich. Paris awaits the arrival of the 85th Tour de France. The 96 survivors, barely 50% of the field, arrive in the romantic capital today. The sun is shining and the strife-torn field should have an Italian winner for the first time in 30 years. It will be an emotional moment. Yes, this is the Champs-Élysées in Paris, and you know, over this past week we often wondered if indeed we would be standing here for the finish of the Tour de France. Ever since the race had left Ireland, it has been troubled by doping scandal. Well, the International Cycling Union know now there are cheats in this sport. They must show they are strong, they must increase the penalties for the offenders, and they also must make stronger doping controls. The riders who are coming into Paris today, I think, are relieved the secret is out. I hope they are all clean, as everybody does. And in fact, two of the big teams in the Tour de France, the Telecom team and the Cofidis team, have said they want to put big money now into making better tests for dope checks in cycling. I think to balance the argument, we should point out the Tour de France makes dope checks every day, and so far, everyone has proved negative. Now to the nicer side of the sport, the arrival today in Paris of the first Italian winner of the race since 1965. He's the most popular rider in the world right now, Marco Pantani, so let's enjoy the day with him. And here he is this morning, and if he looks a bit different, well, Marco Pantani's been busy overnight, pulling his beard into line with his yellow jersey. In fact, the other 6 survivors of his Mercatoni Uno team have also dyed their hair yellow, well, yellowish anyway, for today's ride into Paris. And it also matches the colour of the champagne here as they head now towards the Champs-Élysées. Andrea Taffi's had a great Tour de France as the new champion of Italy too, hasn't he?
He certainly has, but when it comes down to the final lap on the Champs-Élysées, Nicolas Jalabert, the only Jalabert left in the race, is trying to go clear, but all of the sprinters' teams are keeping it very compact at the front.
Well, it's always hard to keep the sprinters at bay when you come to the last stage of the Tour de France. Remember that Eric Zabel has tried and tried again to equal Rudi Altig's record, which is the German record of 8 stage wins. He's had 7, but this year he's had absolutely none. And now as he heads up towards the finishing line, he's not very well placed either. Little bit of wheel slip there as the Gant team tried to stir it up, but now it's coming up towards the line here now, and it's still Fanini stuck in on the inside, and Zabel is on the wheel of George Hincapie. McEwen is on the wheel of Eric Zabel, but Tom Steels is coming away, and it looks like a 4th stage win for Steels. Well, it's been a perfect tour for Tom Steels after the disqualification a year ago. 4 stage wins for him, and he's finished with the Sprint Royale on the Champs-Élysées. So the champion of Belgium wins the stage, and this is how he does it. He makes it look pretty easy in the end. He certainly was the best sprint finisher of the race, he made sure of that, but he wasn't consistent enough to win the green jersey. That's certainly going to Eric Zabel, while the maillot jaune of the Tour de France has gone to the pirate himself, probably the most popular winner of the Tour for many, many years, Marco Pantani. And all of Paris will toast that today. There's the final result after over 92 hours of racing. Jan Ullrich finishing 3 minutes 21 seconds back of Pantani. Bobby Julich of the United States taking 3rd at 4:08, and the big surprise, Christophe Raniero coming 4th. Michael Bogart was 5th. The King of the Mountains being taken out by Christophe Raniero in the end, 200 points for him. Pantani getting 2nd there. Alberto Elli finishing 3rd. Eric Zabel, a clear winner of the green points jersey for a 3rd year. Once he gets 4, he'll equal the record held by Sean Kelly, and his son watches on. There was no doubt about Marco Pantani being a great winner despite all the controversy. He was simply the best, winning the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France in the same year. Only 6 other riders have ever done that, and the top 3, well, they all deserve the accolades. Well, as I said at the beginning, this is the 10th year we've brought you the video on the Tour de France, and my goodness me, we couldn't have brought you a more controversial race, the 85th edition of the event. But in the end, it found a true winner, the most popular man in the world of cycling, Marco Pantani.
And despite all the scandals that rocked the Tour de France this year, Phil, Marco Pantani provided some fantastic racing. The way he went through the Pyrenees and then onto the Alps, and finally with a great time trial, he became the first climber since Lucien Van Impe in
1998 Tour de France. Together with Pantani, Ulrich struggling, Festina affair and such. Thank you for dropping by, thank you for the chat, and for watching.
So until the next time, for Paul Showing, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye.
See you guys on Sunday, 2 days from now, another 3 hours ride. We will watch something from Indurain, I think. From the 1992 probably, or something like that. I saw that in the list. So. And again, this one is brought to you, the video is brought to you by Classic Cycling YouTube channel or Success Cycling. Today is Classic Cycling. With that, let's switch back to Zwift UI and just finish it. 105 km in the bag. Let's just save it. Thank you for dropping by. Thank you for the follow. See you guys 2 days from now, another 3-hour ride with Miguel Indurain, watching him racing. Goodbye.